Committee on Tuesday 7th October. In accordance with Section 43 of the Local Government Act Scotland 2003, this meeting will be conducted in such a manner as to allow remote attendance by elected members. And I'd like to welcome Councillor Spears to this meeting. He's going to ask questions on the first item on the agenda, the Falkirk Plan. And Councillor Meikle-John, I would say it's good to see elected members coming along. So the agenda item 1 is, do we have any apologies?
Good, thanks. Slightly ironic after what you've just said, but we've got quite a few apologies. Apologies from Councillor Aitken, Anslow, Deputy Provost Balfour, Councillor Binney, Councillor Brown, Councillor Forrest, and Councillor Ritchie.
Thanks very much. Agenda item 2, declarations of interest. Members should declare any financial and non-financial interests they have in the item of business at this meeting, identifying the relevant agenda item and the nature of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? Councillor Patrick.
Yes, Provost. I just want to read, it's just a transparency statement regarding the paper about the Falkirk bid. That I'm a partner who has a business based in Falkirk Town Centre and therefore is part of the bid. So I just want to make that clear. I don't think it actually affects me taking part in this particular paper, given its nature, but it's important that that's clear, that I do have an interest in that.
Okay, thanks very much for that transparency statement, Councillor Patrick. Agenda item 3, minute of the meeting of the Scrutiny Committee held on the 16th September, pages 3 to 8 on your agenda papers. Can we agree the minute?
Agreed.
Thank you. Agenda item 4, rolling action log, pages 9 to 11 on your agenda papers, and we'll go to Mr. Perry for that.
Thank you. There's nothing to add from the previous meeting. Everything is in progress and will be submitted in accordance with the timescale set out in the rolling action log.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Perry. Agenda item 5 is the Council Plan Annual Performance Report 24-25, pages 12 to 43. We'll go to Mr. Laurie to speak to that report. Thank you.
Morning, Convener, and thank you. This report sets out progress towards the delivery of the Council Plan, with a focus on Q4 24-25, and it includes both local indicators and indicators from the most recent local government benchmarking framework. So these are appendices 1 and 2 of the report in front of you. So the Council does have a duty under the Local Government Act of 2003 to publicly report performance. And we need to do that in a way which is balanced, timely and accessible. And where we're not on track, the Accounts Commission direction of 2024 sets out that we should outline actions and timeframes for improvement. And you can see that in the indicators where we're not on track in Appendix 1. The Accounts Commission direction also requires us to maximise the use of local government benchmarking framework data to facilitate comparisons with other authorities. And you see that in Appendix 2. And what I would say is that, and appropriately, we are continuing to consider how best we improve our performance reporting. There's a lot of information under Falkirk Performs on the web. You'll be familiar with some of that, I hope. But we're always interested to get feedback and comments from members in terms of how we can make this reporting more helpful and more accessible to you. Just in terms of the LGBF, there is a time lag for the publication of the full suite of indicators in Scotland. So the figures in Appendix 2 are related to 23-24. But it is a valuable resource that it helps us understand our service delivery performance by comparing it with all other local authorities. And in paragraph 4.5, the report refers to recent work we've done, peer collaborative review work, whereby we've compared our performance and our approach with other councils in order to drive improvement in an area where our performance was not good enough and we wanted to improve. And the summary detail round about the LGBF figures at 524 in the report. Before that, we have commentary on the local indicators. They're set out under the headings of the council plan, the three strategic outcomes. And as I said, we've got more details for the indicators in Appendix 1, where we are not currently on target. So that's a brief introduction to the report. As you can see, we've got quite an array of officers, both in the room and online, to deal with any questions that members might have. Thank you, Professor.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Laurie. Okay, I think I'll go to elected members first. Councillor Spears and Councillor Meiklejohn to ask the first questions, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you. Page 15, there's a bar graph at the top of the page regarding the end of year performance. Now it looks as though we're 1/3 underperforming, not on target and slightly off target. Could we please have a bit of an expansion regarding that matter? It's under local indicators 5.1.
Yeah, hi, Councillor. So the
Can I just clarify, this is page 15 of the report or page 15 of the agenda?
so for the indicators that are not on target, there's 22%. They're where we've identified that they've not met the target set by services themselves. So that's where that's been flagged up. And they're then given details within the exceptions report below in the appendix to give outline as to why the targets haven't been met, what the circumstances were, and what improvement actions are in place to try and sort that out for future. And for the indicators that are slightly off target, they've just marginally missed the target. So they're kind of monitored over a course of 2 quarters. And if they're then off target for slightly off target for 2 quarters, then they would be given the exception report.
Like your euphemism, slightly off target, but off target's off target. What happens after the next 2 quarters if they're not back on target?
So they would be then moved into the red, and then we would be asking services to provide the improvement actions and the reasons why they've not met the target.
So that's something like 9 months they get to try and be on target.
It should be 6 months. So normally just the 2, and then we've been asking, but yeah, it would be coming to you in the report 9 months.
But if they're only slightly off target, do they need 6 months?
I think the services are always working towards trying to meet the targets. So having them as the amber, they then flag them up before then as well. Services are normally reviewing them like more frequently than our reporting.
Okay, I'm very pleased to hear that.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Spears. Now go to Councillor Meiklejohn. Councillor Meiklejohn. Okay, any other questions? Well, I'll ask the first question here. Some targets, it kind of touches on Councillor Spears' question. Some targets are met quickly after they were set, but if the target was anticipated to be reached by the end of the year, they could be revised to prompt further improvement. So how are the targets set and monitored? Mrs. Algie.
Thank you, Provost. The targets are set and monitored through looking at a range of different factors. So we take into account performance in previous years, we take into account benchmarking information from elsewhere, and we also look at planned improvements as well. And it's always about stretching our ambition to improve. So there's a lot in there about just trying to move us forward as a council and making sure that we're being as ambitious as possible, but also realistic if we know that there are some pressures over the horizon that could impact on the target, that we need to be realistic about those too. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mrs Algie. And now we'll go to members for questions. Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Provost. Probably following on to what we've already heard, on page 36, it's the last point on page 36, the percentage of projects delivered on time and on budget had a target of 80%, but only 36% projects were delivered on time and on budget. That's quite concerning, probably, to us all and the wider public. Could I get some reasons, please, and solutions going forward to try and make this better?
Mrs Algie.
Thank you, Provost. Provost, this relates to our Council of the Future projects, and we continually monitor these on a 6 to 8 weekly basis through the Council of the Future Board, which is chaired by the Chief Executive. So these projects are specific about those indicators. Now we've got those projects. Now, the projects can vary from meeting to meeting. If there is something that's maybe happened in that 6-week period that would then knock it back to amber, but we continually monitor to see what we can do to remove any barriers to success of these. Our most recent report suggests a better picture than what's been presented today. So there's always a timing issue in these particular projects. Thanks.
With regards to sticking to budgets?
Apologies, I didn't pick up that point, sorry. In terms of the budgets, we've got very strict criteria about what percentage we know will be absolutely deliverable. We err on the cautious side. So this is about the deliverability of savings through these projects rather than the spend on the budgets. So once we know that there's an absolute certainty of deliverability of the savings projection that we've set for these projects, that's when it would move into the green. But it's a work towards in a lot of cases. It's not an immediate green right away.
Thank
you. Thanks very much, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Kelly.
Thank you. Morning, everyone. On page 22, LPI 03, the number of homelessness presentations decreased from 1164 in 23-24 to 1058 in 24-25. Which is below the Scottish average of 1271. Continuing this reduction would be a positive outcome. Can we expect this to happen?
Okay, we'll go to Mr Ferguson to answer that.
Thank you, Provost. The short answer is we can't control the volume of presentations. However, what I do want to recognise is our direction of travel the last 12 months has been better than national average. That's a credit to the prevention work of the team within the House Needs Service. So I suppose the short answer is that we hope to continue that trend, but obviously there's other factors beyond our control that may impact on that one. But the short answer is the prevention team that's been in place for a few years now seems to be delivering results in that regard and stopping people walking through the doors as homeless and avoiding the need for that process to be started for those households.
I don't know if anybody did you hear that okay, or
it's kind of a bit muffled, isn't it?
Apologies, Provost. Well, try again.
Try again. Hold on a minute.
I think Jack's gonna.
Okay, we'll try that, Mr Ferguson.
Yeah. So the position is that we have seen a lower, a greater reduction in Falkland than anywhere else in Scotland in terms of the presentations. We believe that's in part due to the work of the prevention team. However, we have to be quite clear we cannot control entirely the number of presentations of homelessness. That is external factors beyond our control. There is no local connection anymore. So I think that the trend is positive. We hope to continue that. Unfortunately, we can't currently guarantee that will be the case.
Okay. Mr Kelly.
Okay, thanks. But moving on to page 23, LPI 30. The average number of days to secure permanent housing from the date of homelessness decision has been increasing from 324.6 days in quarter one to 406.6 days in quarter four. The target for 120 days to be the average, which is 1/3 of the average time it was taking in quarter four, page 16.5.8 in the covering report. It mentioned targeted work is being done by the Housing Transformation Board to improve re-let times, and a review of the allocations policy was completed this year. Could you tell me how that's going now?
Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you, Provost. So yeah, there are a few acts in place here. So I'm able to take members back to this time last year where we suspended non-emergency repairs. We recognised at that time that homelessness was an acute issue for us. We have a lot of people who were in homeless communities for some time. What we're seeing now is because we managed to reduce the number of people who are currently homeless, and that's a lot of the sort of legacy cases we had, that average time has increased. But that's a reflection of the good work that's been done to do that. So the combination is we suspended repairs, we put a clear focus on homelessness. That has meant that the average time was up because we're clearing some of those older cases. We expected during 25-26 that number will reduce and continue to do so in 26-27. But obviously in terms of the void relet times, that is helping. The allocations policy approved in January is also helping. So the signs are positive again, but what we had was we had a significant backlog of people who've been in homeless accommodations for some time. And as we clear them down and they become secure tenants elsewhere, that average time to conclude those cases has increased.
Thanks, Paul. Could we maybe get a briefing note on that for the committee, if you don't mind?
Absolutely. I think we were probably to do one. There was a report from the Scottish regulator on homeless performance recently, just released 2 weeks ago. So what we'll do is we'll do a members briefing note on that and cover those points off within that report.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Provost, could I just pick up on a previous point made by Councillor Aitchison? It's the question of the percentage of projects, you know, which the target was 80 and we only achieved 36% of it. Mrs. Algie alluded to the fact that, you know, that's to do with the Council of the Future project, and there are projects within there. What I'm getting at is that as in our scrutiny rule, when we see something like that, it just flashes red, you know, it's coloured red. So it jumps out to us. Is there anything that we can do with in our scrutiny role here? If we don't know what the projects are and what the projects are about and whatever, is it worthwhile? Don't get me wrong. I mean, I like you to tell us where there's maybe a concern you're not meeting targets, but is it of benefit to the scrutiny committee? I mean, I'm asking a question here, and I don't know what the answer is or what the objective is. You know, do you see where I'm coming from? You know, you're highlighting an issue, but it may not be an issue that we need to know about, if you like. You know, but if it is something, maybe we need a wee bit more in depth of what the projects actually are. As you say, they can be short-term projects, so they can come and go, and maybe we don't need to know about them. So therefore, I suppose what I'm saying is, don't get us so nervous with the reds there. If you understand what I'm kind of getting at. Thanks.
Thank you, Provost. Provost, there's a recognition that members don't have or didn't have enough information on some of these projects, and you definitely need more information on them. These are our big transformation projects that we are working on across all services. We have started to change that approach. So within the financial strategy, I appreciate it was a very lengthy document, but within the financial strategy, we did set out the projects and the progress getting made. So that enables a level of scrutiny at that stage for that to happen. But there's more work getting done. And I'm going to ask Amanda maybe just to come in and expand on some of how we would want to ensure improved communication to members about these projects.
Just before Amanda does come in, I think, you know, if there had been a wee reference to that to say that, you know, it's contained within the financial strategy, you know, it would maybe have diverted me off and, you know.
I accept that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I suppose I would just add, I agree the point. I think sometimes because of all the different timeframes we have for getting the different committee papers together, you can have sort of, it doesn't always lend itself to making the right connections. But I think when we talked at Council last week, we talked about the Council of the Future programme and the recommendations that come out of Audit Scotland. For example, our best value reports say that we really had to improve how we're reporting progress to members, particularly on those projects. And as Karen said earlier, there's regular scrutiny by officers as part of the Council of the Future board. So the focus for us just now is really on how we improve the reporting to members. So as part of the financial strategy, we put a table which listed the projects and also had a sort of red, amber, green status for the milestones for delivering the projects and then for the savings associated with the projects. And so at the financial strategy, we had 8 of the 9 projects on track in terms of their milestones. However, we only had 3 on track in terms of their savings at that point. Our aim is to continue to improve and provide more information. So we're looking at, for example, the structure of our financial projection reports that will come to executive and trying to incorporate this kind of information into those on a more regular basis. So hopefully through those mechanisms, and then also considering again how we pull the budget together, that hopefully there'll be regular, that will provide members with sufficient sort of regular information for you to be able to scrutinise these projects a little bit more.
Thank you very much. Very informative, ladies. Thank you. Thank you, Convener.
Councillor Spears.
Firstly, I'd like to thank you very much for the invite here to the Strategy Committee today. The financial strategy, that is the strategy group that we discussed at full council, and independent members only meant to be a part. So it's really good to come here and take part in some scrutiny. But will the minutes then be produced and given to us from the financial strategy group? Because it's quite clearly here we can wait 3 months or 6 months or 9 months to do some scrutiny on sections that nearly meet the targets. But where is the saving if you're 9 months down the line at a yearly budget and the targets haven't been met?
Thanks, Councillor Spears. We'll go to Mr. Laurie.
Just on the issue you mentioned around about the financial strategy group, first you'll recall in the appendix to the financial strategy, it talks about sharing as much of the documentation going to that group as possible. So I see no reason why the minutes shouldn't be part of that. In terms of the broader issue around about reporting, and you specifically refer to financial savings, and a project might be off target at a particular point, but we still might have a significant portion of the savings being delivered. And I guess, and it's picking up on the point that Karen made, as officers, we're really on top of that because we have to be, because it's so fundamental to us delivering the financial strategy. So as was said, I chair the Council of the Future Board every 6 weeks, and if there's something off track, we're not waiting weeks or months to deal with that. We're asking the questions there and then in order to improve performance, get back on track. I think the point that's been rightly made, and it follows up from Councillor McCabe's question, is that a single line in this report showing that things are off target doesn't give you sufficient information about that. And that's precisely why, as set out in the financial strategy, we'll have more reporting on Council of the Future in the future.
Just a point, it was said that it has to wait to get to the 9-month stage before it's red flagged. So at what point do you get the red flag?
I was talking about the work of the Council of the Future Board, and specifically the projects which had been referred to in Councillor McCabe's question. In terms of performance, and a section of the Council managing performance, it's not a task that comes up every 3 months. It's a daily and weekly task in terms of ensuring performance is on track. And if it isn't on track, then taking the action to get it back on track.
Thanks, Councillor Spears. So now go to Councillor Meikle-John if she's there. Oh, Sir Bennett, in you come.
Through you, Provost, I just wanted to give a little bit more reassurance in terms of the Council of the Future activity, because sometimes we might be projecting a very significant saving, such as £2 or £3 million from a particular project, and that might be over 2 or 3 financial years. And so my officers on those individual projects might know exactly what they're going to do to deliver that saving in year 1 and year 2, but in year 3 they're still scoping out exactly what will be done to deliver the saving in year 3. In that instance, my officers are marking the project as amber because they haven't fully identified all the funding that might deliver that project. But we're talking 2 to 3 financial years away. So it's not a concern for me as an officer at that moment, because we still have good time in place to achieve that saving. And it's right and proper that we don't mark it green, because that, for me, doesn't correctly identify the complete status of the project. But it's not that the target, it's not that we're off track in the delivery of that project. I think the other point I wanted to pick up about targets being slightly off track, it's a real judgment for elected members to make. We as officers could set ourselves targets which will be typically met, but presumably the ambition here is to stretch ourselves and go as far and hard as we can. In such instances, sometimes we will be slightly off track, and that's why the details in the report there, where you can go into the individual figures and challenge us on the individual performance. But I think if we have a situation where any time a target is slightly off track and officers are being criticised, then you might have an unintended consequence of officers starting to set targets which are achievable but not stretching. So it's a judgment, and I don't speak on behalf of the council. I'm just talking in my own service. If there is a level of criticism applied to those, then clearly my officers might start changing their approach, and I don't want that. I want us to be ambitious, to set really ambitious targets, but I'm very happy to get into the actual detail of individual performances, and you can challenge us on why that might be off track.
Okay, thanks very much.
There's always a certain amount of risk taking, and I believe we have a briefing this afternoon regarding that. But when the risk has outweighed the benefit, then we need to identify that earlier rather than later.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Spears. Thanks, Mr. Benny. We'll go to Mrs. Templeman.
Thanks, Convener. I think I just wanted to make the point around savings and the reporting of savings and delivery of savings, because obviously if, for example, there's a Council of the Future project which is due to deliver some savings in 25-26, that will have been incorporated in the budget, and as part of the financial projection report we do a red, amber, green status update to members to see what we think this is going to happen with each saving that sits within that year's budget. So in terms of imminent delivery, in terms of the current financial year, you'll get those regular updates on savings delivery as part of your financial projection reports. And then what we're looking to incorporate in, though, is a sort of wider full project delivery information. So that's what we'll add into the financial projection reports.
Okay, thanks very much. Councillor Spears.
So you're saying we need another couple of colours in there between red and amber and green?
I think the threes is working fine.
So we'll now go to Mrs. Councillor Meikle-John.
Thanks, Provost. Sorry, I'm a wee bit late to the meeting, just having to deal with other things at the same time. Actually, Mr. Binney actually kind of detailed a wee bit of what I was going to ask.
Very difficult. Hold on a minute. It's very difficult to hear you.
Would that be any better?
Try that. That sounds a
Right,
bit better,
okay.
yes.
Yeah, apologies. I'm having technical difficulties with my sound, so I'm using the headset. It was just to recognise that, that this is a scrutiny committee, and you're always going to get things that are going to be coming retrospective, and that allows questions to be asked. But I think it is important that we allow officers to do their job of the day-to-day management around keeping the council on track, and it would be really useful to get into some of the detail around some of the performance aspects, because some of it's good, some of it's not so good, and I think we need to allow the officers to explain why things are not so good, because it may be circumstances out with our control, rather than being critical, but having that understanding. But I think it was really good to hear Mr. Benny and both Amanda and Karen about that reassurance of that daily monitoring of performance and the regular updates. The Council of the Future programme has already been flagged up, and we will get more detail on that as they evolve. But we have to remember that these will be longer term projects that are going to feed hopefully the financial savings that we require in years 2, 3 and 4, rather than in this coming year. Similarly, the other work that's going on. So I think from the point of view of scrutiny, we just need to keep it in perspective. It's not the real time, it is a reflection, but we need to have assurances about the work that's been done in that reflection, to make sure that things are being kept on track, and we should have stretch targets. I think it's important that we do have an aspiration to do better. Thanks, Provost.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Meikle-Jones. I'd just like to ask a question. Targets for sport and leisure were exceeded, generating 6.02 million in income compared to the target of 5.5 million, which was really positive. How did we manage to achieve that? Mr. Benny.
Thanks, Provost. What I would say is that we've brought in new officers to the sport and leisure service that have got some really good experience. I think we are looking at every opportunity to generate additional income. We're maximising those programmes that are popular. I think we brought the report recently to the executive about the swimming lesson programme, and you saw how that had significantly grown to levels that the council had never seen before. So what I probably would say is I'm happy to ask the sport and leisure guys to maybe present a briefing that can kind of update on that, because I think there is a lot of really strong activity going on, and they'll do a better job than me of selling it.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Bennett. Councillor Kelly.
Thanks. Can we move on to?
Can I just?
Oh,
sorry, Provost. Mr. Benny, the $500,000 extra was generated than what you had planned. Is that being reinvested back into the service, or is it used for budget gaps and things?
Thanks, Provost. So sport and leisure is one of the Council of the Future projects, and I set them a ambitious target of generating a £3 million saving over 3 years. So the achievement that they're making in terms of higher attendances and higher levels of income goes towards that project. So it's another example of those projects I was talking about before, where we've got a 3-year target, and right now the guys are doing a really good job, but they still need to identify how they're going to deliver in that final year. But I can incorporate that sort of information into the briefing that elected members are offered. But I think it's important to also reflect that the council has made a significant investment in the sports and leisure extensions that are taking place right now in the Bowness and Denny. So there's also additional investment going in across sites like the Grangemouth Sports Complex. And you'll have seen in the financial strategy report presented last week, there was an ambition, hopefully, to get some sort of capital investment to upscale the equipment in our gyms. So it's a two-pronged approach. You can't just take all savings, because otherwise the facilities that people use will not be as attractive as what's available in the private sector.
I think there was lots of different points there and a lot of different sources of funding coming into that, but certainly I would hope the money's reinvested and it'll stop us getting back to the situation where we were with Bowness Recreation Centre. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Kelly.
Okay, thanks, Provost. On waste, page 18, the amount of biodegradable waste, I got my tongue around that one, biodegradable waste sent to landfill in 24-25 was actually zero, and down from 22,000 tonnes in 22-23 and 11,000 23-24, and it's an excellent thing to bring about, really positive. But how have we done this?
Mr. Bennett.
Through you, Provost. The council agreed, I think it was about 18 months ago, the new contract for the treatment of waste going to, God, sorry, my brain's escaping me here, but you know, the plant that take the heat to, sorry, the waste to heat facility that we see in Grangemouth takes a large percentage of our waste now, so we don't send any to landfill. We've also got another treatment centre that deals with the more harder to deal with waste, such as like mattresses and things like that, that wouldn't be suitable for a waste to heat facility. So the guys have done an absolutely fantastic job. I'm really pleased that we've managed to hit that zero target, because that was something that we obviously had an ambition to. That's feeding into the climate change results that we're getting, and council will get an update about the climate change achievements to the December committee, I think. In addition, I'd just point out in the financial metrics in this report, there's also some really good performance from our waste service in terms of the cost per collection, which I think we're in the top 5 for Scotland on those levels. So I think the performance of the waste service in Falkirk is particularly strong.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. We've seen a steady increase of tourism expenditure in Falkirk from 137 million in 22-23 to 149.58 million in 23-24 to 156.86 million 24-25. This shows a very positive trend, even if we're just slightly below the target of 159 million. But I wonder if you'd maybe touch a bit on where that money's been spent and how have we developed tourism improved significantly. Mr. Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks, convener. So yeah, you touched on that. That was a target. The overall target was part of the tourism strategy for Falkirk, which executive approved back in June 2023. So it's a cumulative target, which to increase expenditure in the tourism economy locally by 20%. So we just broke that target down into 5, and we are making progress. As you said, the trend is positive, but we're slightly off target for the moment. We've seen really positive improvements. Rosebank opening. We've got a new tourism group, which is the industry group that work together. Falkirk Distillery as well are working towards opening and becoming a public tourist attraction as well. And we've seen developments also in Blackness at the Lobster Pot with the new gin distillery there. So I think and positive developments at the Helix and the Kelpies as well. And I think looking to the future as well, we'll see some really positive developments to the Falkirk and Grangemouth growth deal with the art park and the art centre in HQ as well that are planned in there. So I think what's been particularly encouraging has been the private sector investment in tourism locally and the confidence that we've seen in the tourism economy, and that's working through with the spend and some other metrics as well, which aren't included in the report. Increasing number of visitors. You know, previously the Helix has gone through the 1 million barrier per annum, and we're also seeing some improvements in overnight visitor metrics as well. So overall, really positive. I would say it's the private sector investment and the partnership that we've got working in. My colleague Charlie Croft Johnson's on the call as well as the tourism regeneration officer. So that's what I would say, Provost, is in the particularly positive developments.
Thank you. And Falkirk Football Club went up to the Champions League. So that should bring more people into the town as well. So we'll now go to Councillor McCabe. Councillor Spears first, then Councillor McCabe.
Okay, thank you, Keir. Provost, thank you, Keir. Tourism is something that's very close to my heart, having been involved with the Wheel and the Kelpies and all our past great successes. How do we marry shutting sports centres, shutting toilets like in Blackness, cutting the budget of Falkirk Delivers, which does great work, so we don't have the same amount of projects in our satellite towns like Grangemouth, Bowness, Larbert, for events? Now, I think the increase in tourism is one of the offshoots of Brexit. Not so many people are going abroad. So we are in a position where we can benefit from that. But cutting the budget, say everybody that works for it, shouldn't really be part of the scenario. Now, there's a whole raft of things out there happening. Probably the biggest one is the cruise ships now coming into the River Forth. We really need to try and gear up and get part of that itinerary of tour visits here into Falkirk District. Is there a committee being formed where we can look at all the different aspects, where we can really sell this area? With the loss of the major industries, then tourism is the biggest employer, whether it's in restaurants, bars, or even the shops. But it would help to solve a lot of our problems, i.e. the high street and the lack of use, if we put a lot more effort and a bit of money, a bit of whaley, as we would say, into our tourism business. Because obviously the people are coming here, but I don't see a great deal of work we're putting it in to encourage them.
Mr. Stevenson.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks, Councillor Spears. So I think your question was about partnerships. We do, I mentioned there's the Tourism Industry Group, which is chaired by a representative from Scottish Canals. So that's the key visitor attractions locally, and the council and other partners that are involved in that. My colleague Charlie does sit in the Cruise Forth. There's a committee, there's a board that looks at opportunities for the cruise ships that come into the Forth and other areas in Scotland. So there are opportunities to draw visitors that are coming in cruise ships to Falkirk and other areas, but that's something that group is looking at, and Charlie's involved in that and representing Falkirk on that. I think, yeah, there's challenges around budget, but I think it's about working smarter and working with Falkirk Delivers and working with those groups to look at what other funding opportunities are out there to leverage that in and work with our visitor attractions to bring in opportunities and projects and bring in spend to deliver tourism initiatives.
Sorry, Ciara, to mention Falkirk Delivers, whose budget we have dramatically cut. And when they put an event on in the town with a very, very limited budget, the footfall dramatically increases. They can't also back other organisations who put events in the town and bring thousands of people in. So to say we're working with them, just telling them you're cutting their budget isn't working with something. Certainly not working.
We'll go to Mr. Benny to follow up.
Thank you, Provost. I'd just like to highlight to committee the previous report that came about the tourism visitor levy. So the council's actively working right now to explore the potential for raising a levy that could generate up to £1.5 million that the council can directly put towards supporting tourist activity. I think that the he has already spoken about the Helix Park, which is an absolutely fantastic visitor attraction that's broken the £1 million visitor mark, which I think is something we should be celebrating. I think the council is doing some pretty heavy lifting in this regard. We're going to be bringing a proposal for a new Falkirk Town Hall in the new year, which would be a £70 million commitment and investment to Falkirk Town Centre, which would be by far the most significant thing we could do as a council to attract people into that high street. I think Council's also aware of positive plans that have been brought to committee with regard to the Calendar Park Master Plan. There are feasibility works going on with regard to Calendar House. And in addition to that, we've also previously spoken about the development of a public archive or publicly accessible archive for our historical artifacts. So I think the story's positive. There's a lot of work to do. You can always do more. But I think we need to reflect on the successes. We're not sitting here talking about problems with something like the Helix. We're talking about incredible successes that I think the team should be celebrated for.
Thanks very much.
Just a point of clarification.
Okay.
You said the town hall's the final decision's been made to build it.
Through you, Provost, that's not what I said. What I said was next year council will receive a proposal on the final decision for the town hall.
Thank you. Councillor McCabe.
Sorry, Provost. Just with your indulgence a wee bit, I've actually got two questions, but I wasn't quite sure where we were in the agenda. Are we speaking about Falkirk Delivers at the minute, or no?
We're still in the Falkirk plan, Councillor McCabe.
Right. Okay. Within the Falkirk plan, we're talking about transformation and improvement, and it's to do with I can't remember exactly what page it's on. Page 18, thanks. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Yeah, it's the final paragraph there, 5.23, where we're seeing that sickness amongst teachers remains lower than the target of 4%, whereas sickness, absence and staff excluding teachers was 7.8. Can I just ask for a wee bit of explanation of why that would be the case? I'm going to return to, some future questions about teachers and potentially sickness, absence within teachers. If I could just have a wee update, Mr. Reid, probably. Yeah.
Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Provost. Absolutely, Councillor McCabe. Yeah, the rate, I mean, I think this would be reflected nationally that the rate for teachers is lower than it is for other staff. But just to clarify, the staff referred to excluding teachers is all staff across the council. It's not just within education. But if I was talking specifically about the non-teaching staff within education, that would be all of the staff within our planning resources team. So it would include all of the catering, all of the cleaning staff, all of the janitorial staff. What I do know is, and across the services, every manager is making an effort working with HR to try and reduce that. We are working very closely with a newly appointed HR business partner who is specifically focusing on each service with the top 5, the top 10 absences and taking appropriate actions with our occupational health partners and managers to reduce that. And if I looked at just within education, there's been a 10% reduction in non-teaching staff absence compared in the first part of this session compared to last session. So I think the work with HR and the new business partner is having significant inroads into managing the absence.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Reid. I may return later on in the agenda with some further questions. Thanks, Provost.
Thanks very much, Councillor McCabe. I've just got a couple of questions maybe for Mrs. Alger and Mr. Ferguson. It's on page 41, COR P09 and COR P10. Proportion of Scottish Welfare Fund crisis grant decisions within 1 day. For 23-24, there's 66% and the target was 96%, which made us 32 in the rankings. And proportion of Scottish Welfare Fund community care grant decisions within 15 days, 23-24 is 4.3, and the target was sort of 83.3 and made us 32 in the rankings. I wonder if maybe that could be touched on, why that's the case. Mr. Ferguson or just Mrs. Algie?
Provost, I'll start to respond to that, and then I'll bring in Mr. Ferguson if that's okay. I think I just want to say that I think this is an example of what we were talking about earlier around the scrutiny that we have of these statistics. This is clearly an area where if you even go back a year, we were not performing as well as our peers in this particular area. As a result of that work, we undertook a peer review and done quite a lot of work to review how we could improve performance. So there's a really detailed action plan for performance improvement now in place, and we're starting to see some of the results of that coming through with improved performance. I'm going to bring in Paul now, if that's okay, just about the detail of that. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson.
Yes, thanks, Provost. So we were fortunate to be invited by the Improvement Service to lead on the sort of renewal of the peer review process. It was a great process for me and my team.
Paul, I wonder if you could speak a bit closer to the mic, if that might help a wee bit, or and a wee bit slower maybe.
I'll try slower. It's not my natural position, but I'll try slower, Provost. Is that better?
I keep talking.
So last May, Falkirk Council started a peer review process with Improvement Service and 3 exemplars, which was Midlothian, Inverclyde and East Renfrewshire Council. We have learnt an awful lot, not just about improving performance, but improving the culture, improving outcomes for our applicants. We've totally changed the process and how people apply for the grant, what support they get, triage at the front end, the process we use at the back end, and more importantly, we're about to change the software we use to allow that even improved delivery. So I think that we were underperforming, it was unacceptable, but I think going through this process we've learned an awful lot. And I think just touching on the last point made, the absence level within that team was historically quite high because of the pressures they're under, etc. That absence rate has improved dramatically. So what we're doing is we're giving better outcomes for those most in need, and the staff who deliver that service feel more valued and more involved and more empowered to do the job we all want to do. It was a good job. So I think this is a great example of how performance measurements can really trigger much better outcomes for our most vulnerable.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Ferguson. Just a final question for me. HSN 01B, page 43. I wonder if you could explain why our rent arrears for 23-24 was 14% against the Scottish target of 9.5, Mr. Ferguson.
I can confirm that. So in 23-24, we were 14%, and the Scottish average is 9.5%. We have a historically high average rent charge, rent arrears, I should say, sorry. We have an improvement plan that CMT has decided on that we plan to get that Scottish average within 2 years by the end of 26-27. We're making good progress this year to date. Part of our issue is we have a high legacy of former tenant debts on our books, and that obviously this figure reflects both current tenant and former tenant debts. Both this year to date, current tenant debt and former tenant debt are both heading in the right direction. We've introduced a thing called account analytics, which allows staff to be prompted in engagement and being targeted to make sure that our resources are best used. So we look at where we can make the biggest impact by engagement with tenants. That was introduced last year. And we've also introduced a company called Locta, which is used across Scotland, which allows us to access data for our former tenants across almost every other local authority that have moved to that authority, e.g. West Lothian, North Lanarkshire, etc. So what we have now is a couple extra tools on the belt, a more empowered team, and a clear direction that we're heading towards the Scottish average within the next 18 months, i.e. by the end of 26-27. But yes, historically our performance was below average, and that's not acceptable, and we hope to remember that within that short time frame.
Okay, thanks very much. Okay. Mrs. Algie.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Provost, I just want to give committee the reassurance as well that we are monitoring this on a monthly basis through the Housing Transformation Board. It's clearly linked to a number of factors that we're working on, such as the speed at which we let properties, etc. There's a whole host of elements that impact on that particular figure, but we do monitor it. So we are seeing an improvement in the most recent figures, which is positive, and we just need to keep working on that to make sure that we improve further.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Councillor Meiklejohn, as the leader of the council, do you have any comment to make before I go to a summary?
Just, Provost, I think repeat a journey around your performance.
Sounds a wee bit low, Councillor Meiklejohn.
Apologies, that's it.
There you go.
Just see, I think we've been on the journey with our performance, and while we are not where we want to be on everything, there has been good progress made, and I think there's all credit to the services in taking that step up. We need to continue that, and it is going to have to continue in some very challenging circumstances, but hopefully with transformation, be able to maintain services and just deliver in a different way, and deliver at the highest possible level that we can. So I just final comments from me, Provost, and I'll pass back to yourself.
Okay, thank you very much. So overall, it's a really positive report when you look at all the targets that are gained. So although we've trying to be going to get explanations for a lot of things, but I think we've had reasonable explanations. So it's quite clear a great deal of work is going on to meet the local targets, which need to be, as we've mentioned, achievable and realistic. And we should stretch ourselves a bit because we made them too easy and we wouldn't get anywhere. So everybody should be trying to improve. The use of local government benchmarking framework to ascertain where Falkirk Council lies with regard to the rest of Scotland's councils is a very useful comparative tool. In the report for local targets, we have 61 indicators and 13 didn't make the target. 7 were slightly off target and 39 met the target for this year. 2 targets on school attendance were not recorded in this report due to the timing of academic year. So on the local government benchmark framework, 42 targets are listed. It can be seen there are 26 indicators in the top 2 quartiles of 23-24 compared to 23 and 22-23. So we can see there has been a consistent improvement, which is to be commended. So overall, a good report, and I'm sure the Scrutiny Committee would like to commend every officer and employee involved in achieving these targets, and in a lot of cases exceeding them. Thank you. Bring Mr. Perry in at this point.
Thank you, Convener. So the committee's asked to note the report, but I do notice, or had noted down, there was a couple of points where questions responded to with offers of briefings. I'm just mindful, and this is like a conversation committee, that at previous meetings we've had, you've preferred not to have briefings sent to you because you can't scrutinise them. If you want to do public scrutiny, you have to have a report. So there was a briefing offer from Mr. Ferguson on the homeless figures earlier on. Can I just confirm, is that a briefing note you want, or do you actually want us a report on that? I think it's Ms. Councillor Kelly that asked the question.
Probably a report would be better.
And again, there was a response to the positive sport and leisure target where a briefing was offered. Is that a report?
Again, a report will be fine.
I think so. I wonder if it would be possible to get a report on the council of the future plan. Is that possible?
Yes, Provost, we can organise that. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Spears.
Just to go back to what Mr. Perry was saying about councillors requiring briefings, I thought scrutiny was the briefing. You would get a briefing here, and that was your chance to scrutinise it publicly rather than a private briefing.
Well, just Mr. Perry, just to kind of run over that.
No, so a briefing note would have been a briefing note that was sent out to members, which we just sent by email. Scrutiny is done by getting a report. So the committee is asking for a report on 2 specific subjects so they can do public scrutiny based on the information in that report, rather than receiving an email out with the committee. So they're just clarifying they specifically want reports. on 3 topics, in fact.
The committee here is to scrutinise decisions that have been made by council. So if briefings are highlighted from that, where elected members obviously need a greater in depth, then it should be highlighted here.
I think that's exactly what I'm saying.
Okay, thanks very much. Thanks everybody for their input. It's been a really good discussion on the Falkirk plan. It's quite clear that we're
apologies for tapping in the arm again. Just with that finished, that item finished, the members who are present, who are not members of the Scrutiny Committee, would be politely asked to leave the table. Don't know if Councillor Meiklejohn intends to remain as the leader and in place of the portfolio holders who would be entitled to attend for this meeting, or whether she was just here for this item and wishes to leave.
I have another commitment at 11:30, so I will stay until 11:30 if there's anything else. But I just thank the committee for their time today.
Okay, thanks very much, Councillor Meiklejohn. So, as we said, a really positive report and a lot of good work being done, and we'll look to the future as we always do. Thank you. So the next item is agenda item 6, following the public found, Falkirk Towns Limited, Falkirk bid and taxi marshals, pages 44 to 65 on your agenda papers. Mr. Stevenson.
Yep, thanks, convener. The report provides panel with information following the public pound arrangements for the period April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025 with respect to Falkirk Towns Limited, the Falkirk Town Centre bid, and the Taxi Marshals Initiative, which is delivered by Falkirk Towns in partnership with the council. Key headline information outputs is contained in section 5.4 of the main report, and in Appendix 1 on Falkirk Towns Limited itself, and Appendix 2 on the Taxi Marshals Initiative. In terms of key headline info for the period of the report, we've seen 20,000 uses of the taxi marshalling service. 136 businesses have signed up to the Falkirk District gift card. 33,000 people have attended events in the period in the Falkirk Town Centre, and 2,225 business interactions have been made with Falkirk Towns Limited during the period. There are no areas of concern reported and no financial risks to the council. Happy to take any questions, convener.
Thank you, Mr. Stevenson. We'll go to Councillor Kelly first.
Thanks, Provost. The Falkirk, page 49, Falkirk Towns Limited, levy collection rate in the bid is 71.5% of the total available levy income, about 200,000 down on the 100%. Can you tell me why this is, and are they expected to decline further?
Mr. Stevenson.
Thanks, convener. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. So this would be empty units or empty in absent landlords that aren't paying the levy, or certain exclusions, but it's particularly around empty units in the bid levy area. That's due to the lack of collection. We do instruct sheriff officers through Mr. Ferguson's team to collect the levy, but sometimes the bid management team will agree to write off some of those collections if they feel they're not collectible from the levy payer itself.
Thank you. Just what worries me is if we look at page 55, I think it is, future sustainability, the likely event of a reduction in funding for Falkirk Council, the organisation may have to look for other means of raising funds. But also, should it be, this one's up to 2026, isn't it? The bid.
The bid term, yeah, the current bid term runs to the 31st of October 2026, Council.
And therefore, if after 2026 we don't have that income coming in, it seems it would probably be losing staff from Falkirk Delivers. And I mean, we'll be speaking earlier about the amount of people that we want to come into the town centre, and these employees are very important to getting these different events organised. What would be the plan then if, I mean, we're going to pay people off and lose a chance of getting in more business?
Mr Stevenson.
Yeah, thanks, convener. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. So the process is that you'll probably be aware that the bids in Scotland need to go through a ballot process each time they want to go through a new 5-year term. So the bid board is in the process of starting that process, creating a business plan that we go forward to a vote in the summer of 2026. Council's been really supportive of Falkirk Delivers over the years, as you'll be aware, and we would hope that they would get through that and continue to provide that valuable service. But they would come up with an exit strategy if there was an event, unfortunate event of a no vote. So yes, we would lose that service, but they need to hold back reserves in case there are potential redundancies. But we would hope that would be a situation we wouldn't have to deal with, and there would be a yes vote. But again, it's down to the bid regulations that are within the Planning Act that they need to go through a ballot process, and that's not something we can particularly influence as a council.
Okay, thanks very much for that. Let's hope we don't ever get to that position.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor Kelly. Page 51 and 52. Falkirk Delivers has held events in the Falkirk Town Centre which brought 30,000 people at these events over the year. 90% of survey respondents made a purchase in the town centre during the Christmas events. 250,000 uses of taxi marshal scheme since the launch, and the Golden Ticket Initiative surpassed £700,000. Falkirk Delivers clearly had a positive impact on spending in the town centre and supporting businesses, which is really good to hear. And I just wondered about footfall figures. Do we still have sensors that measure the footfall? We used to have the sensors so you could actually see kind of evidence that we're getting more people onto the high street.
The previous footfall sensors, convener, were through a contract for the public, the town centre Wi-Fi. So that contract came to an end last year, and there's a decision taken not to renew it. But we do have within the operational ability of the CCTV system to monitor footfall, and that's something that colleagues in the team are working with the CCTV team to pull that information through. And it's a really good level of detail that we get through that. It was actually better than the previous Wi-Fi system for the footfall count, and so that is something we do monitor it, and the bid do have access to that data as well. But it's a mixture of that and also guesstimates on the ground during events as well, and liaison with Police Scotland and others.
Thanks very much, Mr Stevenson. I'll now go to Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, convener. Just a wee curious one for me regarding, the work that Falkirk Delivers does is got to be welcomed. My wee question is to do with the district gift card. Can you give me a wee indication on its use in the surrounding areas rather than just in the Falkirk Town Centre, Denny, Banknock, Bowness, Grangemouth? Just give me a wee indication of its use. Anything like this, I think, is to be welcomed. So.
Thanks, Convener. I don't have the data to hand, Councillor McKay, but that's certainly something I can speak with Falkirk Delivers and pull that through for the district towns, including Denny, that the district card would serve. I think the report does note that there's been a decrease in sign-ups to the district gift card, which I think is probably a consequence of there was fixed term funding. It was COVID-related recovery funding that was allocated to the bid, and they did operate in the district towns as well as Falkirk Town Centre, but that came to an end in end of March 2023, I recall. So I think that's a consequence of that, but I can certainly find the data and provide that to panel members on the sign-ups to the gift card in those particular localities.
It would be interesting to see that, and it would then just pose the question, if, just as you say, it was a COVID initiative, if you like, to try and generate some greater footfall, but the funding for it is fallen or disappeared, whether it's something that we could maybe be looking at in future. But no, thanks for that info. Thank you. Thanks, Convener.
Thanks, Councillor McCabe. We'll now go to Councillor Patrick.
Excuse me, I was just a bit of frog in my throat there. Looking at the taxi marshal service, costs £20,000 at present, and the funding that council's been giving is 10,000. We're paying half of it. My concern is that there's no guarantee that Falkirk Council will agree to continue with our funding when we look at our budget this coming year. And also Falkirk Towns have indicated that they don't have the means to contribute to funding in 25-26. So does this mean, what does this mean for the future of the taxi service? The taxi marshalling service. I mean, it appears to me that it's kind of obvious with no funding it's not going to happen. Or can it carry on with perhaps only 10,000 funding if the council agrees to provide that again? So what's the sort of future thoughts and plans?
Sir Stevenson.
Thanks, Convener, and thanks, Councillor Patrick. So I think there were questions earlier about the funding to Falkirk Delivers, and I first of all would say that Falkirk Council is quite unique in Scotland, and it provides core funding to its business improvement districts. Many other councils don't provide any core funding on top of the levy collection to their councils, and that includes the taxi marshal contribution. And there was a briefing note sent around last year about the reduction from the council to taxi marshal service, which was met by Falkirk Delivers, and you're correct. Falkirk Delivers have said that they can't afford to match the 10,000 this year. What we have committed to and what we've written to the chair of Falkirk Delivers and the manager to say that we'll retain the level of funding at the current level, the core funding of 30,000 to the bid, but also the 10,000 to taxi marshals will retain it for this year and next year. Falkirk Delivers have said that they can allocate a small amount to that. So what we're looking at with the taxi marshal provider is providing a service from Halloween weekend right through to the end of the year, which is the key time. It's the festive period. It's what many other areas operate, the taxi marshal service over the busier period and during the winter months, and when it's a bit busier during the festive season. So that's the proposal, but we plan is to provide a brief note to elected members to confirm that in due course, Councillor Patrick. So hopefully that answers your question.
Thank you. Yeah, that's very encouraging to hear that there's a plan to take that forward. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Patrick. Just a couple of questions from me. I wonder, and Councillor Kelly might be interested in your answer, is it Older Persons Champion? There was a bit in the report about the Older People's Network. I wonder if you could maybe touch on that here.
It's not something I'm particularly aware of, Convener, but again, I can ask for an update from the bid on that.
That would be helpful. And final question for me. The Taxi Marshal Initiative reduces strain on the NHS and demands on police in the area. Is there an argument that perhaps the police should have an financial input to that?
Thanks, Convener. It's something we have discussed with Police Scotland in recent years, as well as local businesses and the nighttime economy, and the taxi companies themselves, but there was no funding forthcoming. What Police Scotland did last year was they identified a small amount of funding. I think it was in the region of £1,500 that they contribute to the initiative. So that's something that Falkirk Delivers, Elaine at Falkirk Delivers is working with Police Scotland to see if that's available again this year. That might purchase an additional week to add in to the service, which would be welcome. So it's something we're looking at with Police Scotland.
That's great, thank you. Councillor Kelly?
Can I just ask another question on that? Do we have proof that the businesses capitalise on events, promotional events? Do we have any proof of that? Does anybody collect any data on that?
Thanks, Convener. Thanks, Councillor Kelly. So yeah, the bid, whenever they do events, they do carry out evaluations at the time of the event. So I think some of the data is captured in the report, but 90% of respondents, up to 90% of respondents have said that they have spent money in the town centre when they're there for the event. So and they do informal feedback with the businesses as well. So the businesses do largely welcome events because it brings the footfall and the spend. But again, the figures are generated through the surveys at events.
That's good, thanks.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. I'll go to Councillor Meikle-John to see if she's got any questions on this item on this agenda.
I don't have any questions, Provost, but I would just like to say that over the last sort of 5-6 years, Falkirk Delivers has done an amazing amount of work in Falkirk Town Centre under some very difficult circumstances. They embraced engagement with the businesses, particularly through COVID. They've also suffered as a result of businesses going out of operation within the town centre, and therefore their levy income is reduced. I also think they are playing a key role in helping us deliver the town centre regeneration, and particularly in relation to the new town hall or the replacement town hall. And I'm pleased that we've been able to make the commitment to get us through the next couple of years, because traditionally now bids are not part of councils. They become much more independent, and until we get to a position where I think Falkirk Delivers can become more independent, it was good that we're able to continue to support them and benefit from the work that they do in the relationships with the town centre businesses.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Meikle-John. So, from what we've heard, the value Falkirk Delivers and the taxi marshal service is invaluable. I wonder how many parents are delighted that we have this service to get people home safely. You can see from the report, 23-24, 82,763 people use the taxi marshalling service, and this year to date, 20,000 have used the service, which really sums up the value of the service. We've heard of the work that Falkirk Delivers carries out, examples being the Older People's Network, Blooming Bairns, brightening up the Falkirk Town Centre, tackling antisocial behaviour, recruitment events, grants and support, Scotland Loves Local Week, and many more other events. All these bring people into Falkirk and grow the economy. So I'm sure the Scrutiny Committee would agree it's clear Falkirk Delivers and the taxi marshalling service are something we really like to see continue and couldn't do without. Thank you. Mr. Perry, anything to add?
No, convener, just to double check the committee's decision. So you're asked to note the report and acknowledge the progress made. I think there were a couple of just for information points that Keir's going to come back to you on, but it's not sort of germane to the decision you've been asked to make today. But are you happy to acknowledge the report or note the report and acknowledge the progress made?
Agreed. Thank you. We'll now, that concludes the item, and I'd like to thank everyone for their contributions. We'll now have a 10-minute comfort break. Thank you. Welcome back, everyone, and welcome to Police Scotland. This is agenda item 7. It's pages 63 to 105 in your agenda papers, and we'll go to Divisional Commander Roddy Irvin to give an overview, and then we'll go to Chief Inspector Hadrick.
Thank you very much, Chair. I just wanted to come along and give a bit of a national overview of what's been happening in Police Scotland that's relevant to Forth Valley Division. So one of the most significant changes in Police Scotland since the inception of Police Scotland is a programme of work called Policing for Our Communities. And that's going to be 3 main projects. Project 1 is Enhancing Community Policing, and that's been piloted in Forth Valley just now. That's to do with uniform response policing and community policing. Project 2 is Safeguarding and Investigations, so that will be looking at areas of public protection and what we would typically call CID. Demand in this area in particularly has changed unrecognisably in the lifetime of Police Scotland. And then Project 3 is a review of our enabling functions, so all the backroom functions that the public typically wouldn't see, to look at the efficiency of the delivery there to release as many officers and staff to frontline duties as is possible. So we're currently piloting in Forth Valley Enhancing Community Policing, and we are in time going to be the pilot division for Safeguarding and Investigations. So in terms of enhancing community policing, what does that look like for Forth Valley? Well, first of all, we've introduced a community investigations hub. The Community Investigations Hub has an indoor and an outdoor element. And that's to take non-urgent demand away from the front line and deal with it more effectively and efficiently. We will still have response, but they will have that non-urgent demand taken away from them. And community policing and the model commits to having 2 officers per multi-member ward. So we went live on Monday, previous Monday, across Forth Valley. And that pilot model will be evaluated after 3 months for wider rollout across Police Scotland. We also got in the last couple of weeks body-worn video. So that's been rolled out across Tayside and northern areas of Scotland. So we're the 3rd division to get it. The feedback that we're getting, the predicted benefits and the early feedback we're getting are that it enhances officer safety. People are far less likely to be violent when they know they're on camera. I've also been out speaking to a number of officers across Forth Valley, and we're actually finding that officers from a minority ethnic background are being subject to less racial abuse. It increases public trust and confidence in the sense that there's a transparency there when people know that their interactions with the police are being recorded. It's early for us, but across the rest of the UK, body-worn video tends to increase early guilty pleas. People are shown the footage that's been captured of them, and they are more likely to plead guilty early. So it's not yet been 2 weeks. So what we're seeing is the body-worn video footage hasn't flowed through the criminal justice process yet. So we will, I'm convinced, in time see less demand from officers having to attend court, not being in the communities. So we'll see more officers on the front line. We've seen a period, I would say, of unprecedented demand for the force in recent times. We had what we called Operation Roll, which was the policing response to President Trump's visit to Scotland. Operation Ocklate, which was the Police Scotland response to the visit of Vice President Vance. We are also supplied policing resources as mutual aid down south for the state visit of President Trump. And we've seen, we have Oplest, which is the UK response to protests associated with immigration, anti-immigration. And, well, as you'll be aware, that's had a significant impact across the Falkirk area. So those are just a few points that I just wanted to make you aware of from a sort of national perspective before I hand over to Alec.
Okay, Chief Inspector Patrick.
Thanks, Commander. Thanks, Provost. Good morning, everyone. I'm Alec Catrick, the local area commander for Falkirk. Since commencing in my role in April last year, I've gained a great understanding of our communities, engaged directly with elected members and partners across Falkirk to address concerns of residents and strive to achieve positive outcomes through collaborative working. As the commander mentioned there, the last 18 months has been challenging at times in terms of demand, resourcing national and local events, and more recently the increase in protest activity that we've seen in Falkirk. However, I've been thoroughly impressed by the dedication and commitment of all police officers and staff across Falkirk Area Command and wider across Forth Valley, and the strong partnership relationships we have formed, as this is key to improving successful outcomes for our communities. This morning I'm pleased to present the police performance report for the reporting period April 24 to March 25 for Falkirk. I know everyone will have had the opportunity to review the report, and I hope you agree there's been a lot of positive collaborative working. And I'd like to highlight a few of these, along with emerging trends, threats, successes and challenges. Antisocial behaviour has a direct impact on our communities, residents, businesses and people who work in and visit Falkirk, and this includes people using off-road motorbikes in public places, which continues to be an emerging issue across Falkirk Area Command. To tackle antisocial behaviour, our community policing teams, local authority liaison officers, field-based officers, conflict resolution officer who's embedded in Falkirk Council, along with the support from national police divisions and partners, work together to educate young people about the impact of antisocial behaviour, dangers of alcohol and drug misuse to improve outcomes for our communities. Where criminal offences are identified, enforcement is undertaken. In May 2024, officers identified a rider riding an off-road bike in Slamanan. He was charged with several offences and the bike seized. Several other individuals have been charged and their bikes seized over the course of the reporting period and into this year. This continues to be a focus for the community policing team, with days of actions taking place to tackle this problem using a variety of tactics available to us. This approach to tackling antisocial behaviour has led to a 7.8% reduction in the number of complaints received in this reporting period compared to the previous period. You may recall I mentioned at Scrutiny last year about an offensive weapon initiative across Forth Valley Division, which had just commenced in September 24 for a 3-month period. Locally, this focused on Grangemouth in response to an increase in offensive weapon and knife crime in the preceding months. The initiative was supported by response and community policing teams who completed high visibility foot patrols, visited licensed premises and engaged with local communities, which saw a 20% reduction in these offences over the period of the initiative compared with the previous 3-month period. The initiative was promoted on our local media channels and local radio stations and received positive feedback. We continue to focus on offensive weapons, and early indications show a sustained lower level of these offences. Targeting drug dealers across Falkirk Area Command is a priority for us, and with the support from our proactive team, national divisions and working with partners, we can continue to support the vulnerable. As you will be aware, drugs deaths in Scotland decreased nationally and locally in 2024 compared to 2023. However, we cannot become complacent. During the reporting period, 56 misuse of drugs warrants were executed. That's 11 more than the previous year, averaging approximately 1 a week. Over 50% resulted in controlled drugs being seized, supply charges being liable, and positive disruption and intelligence development. As evidenced in the report, the Ladbroke Community Policing Team arrested 4 individuals who were charged for drug supply, with £11,500 worth of controlled drugs being seized. In Falkirk, the community team arrested and charged a man for supplying controlled drugs, seizing over £10,000 of cocaine, and these are just a couple of the positive cases. Cannabis cultivations is an emerging trend which has continued into this year, and during the reporting period there were 2 significant cannabis cultivations discovered in Falkirk, totaling £1.27 million worth of cannabis being seized. Of note, over the reporting period, our drug supply cases did decrease on the previous year by 23.9%. Overall, that was 21 cases. However, for the year to date, compared to 2024-25 year to date, there's an increase of 62.5%. So I'm pleased to report this is an improving picture for this year. We continue to adopt an intelligence-led approach to tackling drug dealers, and I'm grateful for the intelligence provided by members of the public, and I would encourage them to continue to do so, whether this is direct to the police or via Crime Stoppers, which is entirely anonymous. Moving on to performance figures. In the reporting period 2024 to 25, there was an increase overall in the crimes of violence by 9.2%, 188 crimes. Locally, the rise can be predominantly attributed to an increase in common assaults with 155 crimes. However, despite the increase, we've maintained a detection rate of 69.2% for common assaults, consistent with the previous year. Serious assault and robbery both marginally increased, while still maintaining a high detection rate of 79.8% and 76.1% respectively. A review of these crimes did not identify any repeat locations, however did identify most of these crimes occurred within premises where the perpetrator was known to the victim, and several of these were domestic nature. Over the reporting period, there's been an increase in domestic abuse of 88 crimes. Of note, these will represent a percentage of the increase in common assaults. Despite the increase, we continue to prioritise domestic offending, which has resulted in a 10.9% improvement in the detection rate to 66.9%. Our domestic bail compliance checks also improved by 16.4%, from 79.4 to 92.4 compliance for the reporting period. This is demonstrating our commitment to safeguarding victims of domestic abuse from further abuse. Our disclosure scheme for Domestic Abuse Scotland, DSDAS, gives people the right to ask about the background of their partner or concerned relatives or friends to ask. Also gives police the power to tell people they may be at risk of domestic abuse from their partner, even if they've not asked for this information. These disclosures contribute to a rise in the reports. In the reporting period, 296 applications were received, with 186 disclosures made to protect victims from domestic abuse, representing a 23.8% increase on the previous year. Similarly, all reports of hate crimes are taken seriously and robustly investigated, leading to a 7.4% increase in the detection rate to 68.2%. And I would encourage anyone who is subject to or witnesses any form of hate crime or incident to report this to the police so it can be investigated. Moving on to crimes of dishonesty. During the reporting period, theft by housebreaking and theft by shoplifting decreased by 21.3% and 5.9% respectively, despite a rise nationally in theft by shoplifting. The success of a reduction in theft by shoplifting can be attributed to a positive working relationship with our partners at Falkirk Delivers, crime prevention officers, Retailers Against Crime and the Scottish Business Resilience Centre, who continue to work together to identify prolific shoplifters, provide safety and security advice to retail businesses to make them more secure and create a safer town centre whilst preventing theft. This collaborative partnership was recognised by Forth Valley Divisional Commander Roddy Irvine at our Divisional Awards ceremony earlier this year, where Falkirk Delivers received the Policing Partner of the Year award. Moving on to public protection, overall sexual offences decreased by 7.1%, with an increased detection rate of 62.5% and an increased detection rate for rape to 66.3%. During September 24 and March 25, Forth Valley Division ran 2 named suspects operations to prioritise sexual offending investigations. This was led by our Public Protection Unit and supported by our National Domestic Abuse Task Force, CID, Community and Response Policing Teams and our Divisional Alcohol and Violence Reduction Unit. Across the division, this led to 120 crimes being investigated, 30 suspects arrested and 73 offences detected to help safeguard victims and bring offenders to justice. As trust and confidence continues to increase in the police service, we are seeing more victims coming forward to report domestic abuse and sexual offences, which can be current or historical, and I would encourage victims to continue to do so as these offences are taken seriously and investigated thoroughly. We continue to focus on road safety, and it's reassuring to observe the 100% decrease in children under 16-year-old seriously injured on our roads was 0 for the reporting period. This can be attributed to our continued road safety inputs, speed checks and patrols in and around schools. As documented in the report, last October. Community Sergeant Derek Wallace and Community Officer Ryan Jameson, with the support of the PTA from Drumbowie Primary School, Stanburn, completed speed checks where 3 drivers were reported for speeding outside the school on that occasion, and there was obviously subsequent patrols carried out where additional drivers were charged and reported for speeding as well. Thank you for listening, and both the Divisional Commander and I are more than happy to take any questions you may have.
Thanks very much, Chief Inspector Patrick. For the first question, we'll go to Councillor Patrick.
Thank you both for your reports. I'd like to go back to the antisocial behaviour section of the report, and that's on page 74 of our agenda papers. And this was about the school-based officers and the community officers working with school year groups and youth groups. And again, it's something which as councillors we were aware that we discussed in quite a bit of detail when deciding on the budget last year. So I'm always wary that sort of thing has to come up again. The report is stating that in total there was a reduction of 7.8% in the number of complaints regarding antisocial behaviour. I'm taking that from your report, your verbal report just now, that is really across the board. In other words, that's not really only young people, that's antisocial behaviour if anybody of any age. Am I correct about that? And have we any idea about perhaps reductions for younger people, just really to give us as much information as we can to say that we really should keep supporting these school-based officers? That's what I'm sort of looking for.
Thanks, Councillor Patrick. Chief Inspector.
Thank you. Thanks, Councillor. Yes, that reduction, 7.8%, that is in overall the number of antisocial behaviour incidents that's been reported to police, not just as a consequence of the school-based officers. That's all antisocial behaviour incidents right across Falkirk. I would say that the school-based officers, I think they're vital. They obviously do a lot of prevention work within the schools with pupils, and it's key, and it's not necessarily easy to measure the impact of the work that they actually carry out within the schools. But I'm really supportive of them, and they do deliver a lot of preventive work, but I don't have a specific figure of how much that impact they have causing the reduction.
No, I appreciate that, thank you. I think we do all see the value of them being based in the schools. Thank you.
Sorry, do you have any comment on that? No, okay. Just thought I'd give you the opportunity. Got a question from myself. You touched on the 3-month offensive weapons initiative across Forth Valley, and weapon aggravated crimes reduced by 20%, and that was focusing on Grangemouth. Is there any plans to sort of widen that out?
The initial focus was on Grangemouth for that offensive weapon operation, predominantly as that's what the intelligence and the crime figures told us that was where the problem was at that time. It has been widened out across Forth Valley, and there's other areas in Camelon as well. It has a focus, and also in Stirling and Clipmanshire, they have a focus in their own relevant areas. So it has been widened out, and it's something we continue to look at and continue to target.
That's great, thanks very much. Thanks. We'll now go to Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Convener. Thanks very much for your the report. Excuse me. Thanks very much for the report, gentlemen, and for your brief introduction to it. First question I would ask is, why didn't you arrest Russell Martin, the Rangers manager, before the game on Sunday? I was asked to ask that by Bailey Kerr, just to save him the disappointment in 90 minutes. A jest. If I could pick up on a couple of... this actually came out of council meeting on Thursday. A lot of it had to do with issues relating to the Gladden Hotel and the demonstrations, but I was personally a wee bit surprised at it. But picking up within your report here on page 84, it's to do with the increase in rape detection, which is wonderful, good news, and also the number of sexual crimes showing a reduction as well. But unfortunately, we see there's a rise in the increase of domestic abuse. I suppose my question really is, and own up to being this misogynistic viewpoint, if you like. Maybe I don't see this as out there, but certainly what came across from kind of comments that were made at the council meeting by my female council colleagues, where they felt that particularly women and young children were being increasingly affected by now whether the threat is actually there or whether it's through a misinformation thing, but I can't remember if it was Councillor it may even have been Mr. Ryan, one of the deputations who came along. He suggested that people were scared to go walking in Callendar Park because they have this perceived threat. Do you have any views on that? Do you have any kind of thoughts on that? And it would then lead me on to, I suppose, my main question is, would there be any intention to revise a future report to specifically detail this apparent threat of, against females and younger people? As I say, and maybe just me being this misogynist who goes along, thinks the world's just spinning round quite gaily, but it certainly came across loud and clear at the council meeting, concerns from particularly my female colleagues.
Inspector.
Thanks, Boris. Thanks, Councillor. So in terms of tackling violence against women and girls, that's absolutely a priority for Police Scotland, and we'll continue to do all we can. You can obviously see the bail offending for domestic abuse, that's increased as well, because we're finding that people, once they're charged with initial domestic offending, we're obviously aware that the prisons are really full just now, so more people are getting released on bail. So we're doing more bail compliance checks, and we're finding that individuals are then reaching their bail and committing further domestic abuse. So we are having a focus on that to target that and try and reduce those repeat incidents for victims. In terms of people not feeling safe in Callendar Park, I've had reports of that to myself about that. We do carry out reassurance patrols in Callendar Park. There's not been any incidents reported to police where women and girls have been attacked in Callendar Park. There was obviously a report last year, I think it was end of August, about an abduction within Callendar Park of a female. That didn't happen. So there is some misinformation out there which does heighten tensions, but we do everything we can to keep people safe across Falkirk Area Command, and if there is any information or intelligence, we'll redirect our patrols to that area, but there's nothing to suggest that anybody is at heightened risk from walking about in Callendar Park and Falkirk.
No, that is great, Chief Inspector. I think it supports what I would consider as the actuality. As you say, a lot of this will be misinformation. I mean, I dare say that a lot of the stuff that is actually going on just outside the hotel is undoubtedly due to misinformation, but I'm pleased that you're well aware of it. You've obviously looked into it, and I don't want to dismiss, as I say, my female council colleagues, but they certainly did express, some concerns, some anxieties, whatever. But I'm very pleased to hear you say, that you have your kind of finger on the pulse, and you're keeping an eye on it. Thanks very much, Convener. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCabe. Councillor Kelly, do you have a question?
One or two. You said there are 56, that the drug offences have increased to 56. Is that, would you say, through better detection that you're finding out more? Or is it an actual rise in offences?
Thanks, Councillor. I think I mentioned 56. That was in relation to the number of drugs warrants that were executed over Falkirk Area Command. So that's obviously increased. For the reporting period that for here, the figures are down on the previous year, but they're starting to increase for this year. So we're up 62.60. I can't recall the exact figure. We're up 62% year to date on last year's figure. So it is an improving picture, and that is down to the intelligence that we are getting from members of the public. That's absolutely key, because it's obviously intelligence-led focus we have for tackling drugs. So I would just encourage members of the public to continue reporting any information they have about drug supply to the police direct, through contact us, our website, or local community policing, or as I mentioned, via Crime Stoppers.
That's fantastic. Thanks very much, Alec. Can can I ask, do you have any note of how many drug deaths there's been in Falkirk area, Falkirk district?
Yep, I can answer that. So for last year nationally in Scotland in 2024, there was 1,017 drug deaths. So that's 155 less than 2023. To take that down to Falkirk in 2024, we had 21 drug-related deaths last year compared to 36 in 2023. And that 21 is the lowest figure that we've seen since going back to prior to 2018.
That sounds good news. And do you have a note of how many times officers have used naloxone?
I do. I know I got asked that question last year, so I've got that figure this year. So in total, Forth Valley Division has administered naloxone on 20 occasions, and 11 of those have been within Falkirk Area Command.
Thanks a lot. And just a final question on alcohol. Do you know how many instances were reported via Ask Angela?
I don't have that figure, unfortunately. I don't know if
we'll catch you in something.
I don't know if we actually retain that data or not, but that's something I'll speak to our partnerships team about. See if we do hold that data, and I can come back to you with that.
It's something for the on the licensing board.
Yeah.
That we try and push, the new license holders use this Ask Angela, because I think it's a really good initiative. That. Thanks very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Kelly. Page 97. There's been a 28.8% increase in instances of robbery from 52 in 23-24 to 67 in 24-25. While the detection rate has decreased by 2.7%, it's unclear how many different perpetrators there were. So, and the same for page 99 regarding housebreaking. Is it maybe one person committing 5 or 6 crimes, or how many people are involved in these housebreakings, etc.?
Thanks, Provost. So in terms of the crimes that are recorded there, those are individual crimes, and it might be that one person is responsible. They've maybe committed one robbery, and then they've been charged with that, went to court, and they've been back out and committed another robbery. There's not, from my recollection and review of those incidents, we don't have a high level of repeat offending for those robberies. In terms of the theft by housebreaking, we've seen a significant decrease there over the reporting period, 13.6%. And what we kind of found between April 23 and 24, and probably a bit into this year, which will be featured in the next report, is we're finding the theft by housebreakings, those are predominantly targeting houses with high value performance vehicles. And more often than not, that's individuals that are coming from out with Falkirk to commit these crimes from neighbouring policing divisions as well. So that's certainly an emerging trend we didn't see last year, but we're starting to see that this year. And our proactive, our priority crime team are working hard to try and identify these offenders and detect them, and we have recovered some vehicles as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And I just wondered, as we approach the winter months, is there any campaign or anything like that how people can maybe, I don't know if that's when housebreakings increase or thefts increase, but as we come into darker nights, is there any kind of advice we give to the public on how to keep themselves safe?
Yeah, certainly that's something that our preventions team will look at, and we'll start putting out social media about advice to residents how to keep their property safe as best they can, and again secure any keys for the vehicles within the property. You obviously get the boxes that you can put the keys in for keyless entry to prevent people scanning them and getting access to the vehicle. So we'll start that campaign as we come into the darker nights. In terms of these incidents that we've seen this year, the rise in theft by housebreaking, that's kind of started from about April, May time. So, it's not really, the darker nights haven't had the impact there. But it's just about educating people and just being a wee bit more vigilant and aware and how to secure the property as best they can. So we'll do that moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much, Chief Inspector. Councillor McCabe, do you have another question?
Yeah, if you don't mind, it was just picking up on something Chief Inspector and just said there, about, high value cars and potentially, residents being targeted by external ne'er-do-wells, shall I say. I'm just going to point out, initiatives that the Commander first spoke of, enhancing community, initiative number 1, enhancing community policing. I think that is working really well. I'm happy with that. I think that's a very good initiative. I was a wee bit intrigued with the initiative number 2, safeguarding investigations. Is this because there's an increased level of, shall we say, organised crime moving into this area, drug related or anything like that, or am I just reading too much into it?
Thanks, Councillor. It's probably, that's a national project, so it's not really focused on what's happening in this area. But what I would say is the public protection demand that we face since the inception of Police Scotland is completely unrecognisable. So, sextortion, children being targeted online, the domestic abuse. It's just that project recognises that the public protection demand that we face just is unrecognisable from when Police Scotland. So it's a sort of root and branch review to look at doing that in a way which fits the threat that the public face just now. And in terms of investigations, it will be looking at different serious organised crime threats, different serious organised trends, how things like increased security on cars mean that people have to break into a house. They can't steal a car anymore, so they break into the house to get the key. And all of those things and all of those different patterns and how the communications is facilitated through cyber, various cyber threats. So there's a new, there's a whole division has been set up within our Specialist Crime Directorate for fraud and cyber, just because it's so prolific in a way that it wasn't a decade ago, 5 years ago, that we actually have a bespoke response. So that's been set up quick time. But the Safeguarding and Investigations project, which is ongoing just now, will be looking at the threats that we face, the future threats that we're going to face, and making sure that they build those safeguarding and investigations functions so that they're fit for purpose based on really the unrecognisable threat that we face these days.
It's very interesting to you talk. I'm pleased that it's not. I was maybe overlooking into it. It's not a Falkirk area problem. It is a national problem, and for whatever reason, the chiefs have decided let's roll it out here and try it. I do take on board the whole idea of the public protection has increased exponentially for you guys. I totally respect that, And if I could maybe just suggest one way that you could cut it the next time that Mr. Trump comes across, just have Operation Don't Bother. If he hasn't got enough people protecting him, I don't know why you guys have to get involved. Thanks very much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. Thanks,
Councillor McKeven. Now go to Councillor H.
Yeah, thanks, Provost. Gents, the off-road bikes, they're a bit of a scourge of every community at this particular time. Some of them are just young kids mucking about, messing about, and everything else. But I'm sure we're all so aware that they're used regularly in drug deals, whatever else. And they're used particularly because they can get down the escape routes where police cars, etc. can go. How are we looking to tackle that subject?
Thanks, Boris. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, that has been an emerging issue right from last year into this year as well. And, the community police teams have a focus on that. And again, we rely on information from members of the public to report that to us. It does prove problematic. As you mentioned, it is young people that are riding these bikes. There's a couple of young people that have been charged several times and their bikes seized off them several times for doing the same thing over and over again. In terms of stopping them, we're trying different tactics. We've reached out to our air support unit to get the drone teams to come out to support operations in that respect. We're also looking at having days of action whereby we'll have officers in plain clothes, where it might be more easy to stop them on the bikes. We're limited in our options to pursue these individuals because, if they cause danger themselves, come to serious harm, or they collide with a member of the public, we don't have the expertise or to pursue them and stop them at the time. but then we are gathering intelligence. We review all the incidents to get reported for off-road bikes, and we're relying on the descriptions provided by the members of the public. The community team have a spreadsheet set up with all the different descriptions of individuals, bikes, and then when we get calls, those are reviewed to see if we can link them and identify the people responsible. And I would just encourage members of the public, if they don't know who these individuals are, please report it to police, and be willing to provide us a statement to give us enough evidence to go and charge the person and seize the bike, and we will do that. It is a focus for us, and we'll continue to have these days of actions coming up. We've also got the support from our roads policing colleagues as well, who do patrol the areas where the bikes are happening. We've done a lot of preventive work in the schools in terms of the dangers of motorbikes and highlighting the different legislation between e-bikes, off-road bikes, motorbikes, and the licensing requirements for those as well.
Thanks. That was a really good answer. And you also mentioned the community teams, and I think they're pretty much welcome in every community, and certainly in my community in Bowness, Graham and his team are particularly good. They work really well in the community, and congratulations to them.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Richardson. Councillor Patrick, do you have a question?
Page 102. This is about the user satisfaction survey. And although the average satisfaction for our division, C division, was lower than the force average, it's an improvement from last year and quite a jump of 7% improvement. So I think that's something to be looked on as very, very positive. And it's also worth noting that a number of complaints and allegations about poor service quality have reduced dramatically. I just really wanted maybe some thoughts or feedback about what your thoughts of why this has happened, what's led to this, because it's always good to recognise improvement, but also quite useful to know why.
Inspector.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, as you say, it is really positive and reassuring to see. I think hopefully people are feeling more reassured when the incidents are getting reported either to police direct or through our elected members and highlighted to police. Very much trying to have a focus on, then highlighting that on our social media channels so people know that we're actually targeting these issues. They're not just reporting it to police and there's no action getting taken. We are doing follow-up action, so it's almost like you said we did type thing. And as the Commander mentioned, with the new community hub, it's come into place as well. That will hopefully improve the point of contact from members of the public is even further, because they're picking up the non-urgent demand. If a vandalism is reported in, it might have been they went to a local policing appointment. These officers are then getting the time to go out to local policing appointments, meet those appointments, and then carry out the investigations. Whereas before those went to a response officer, sometimes appointments were missed because the other incidents with greater threat, risk and harm came in and they got diverted to these incidents. So we should hopefully start to see that improve even further over the coming year. In terms of the complaints reduction, again, that's very positive and reassuring to see as well. All officers act professionally and responsibility, upholding the values of trust, fairness, integrity and respect, which is good to see. And I think, as the Commander mentioned as well, with body-worn video, there's a lot more transparency there as well. So it might be when people do then make complaints to the police, that will reduce the amount of investigation that has to be done, because it will all be caught on body-worn video of what interactions have actually taken place as well. So that's a positive as well in terms of the officers' welfare as well. When they're under investigation for a complaint that's made, that obviously has an effect on the individual officer as well. So that should reduce the amount of time that the investigations take.
Yeah, thank you. It's all very, very positive. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Patrick. So I just got a couple of final questions from myself. If you come across somebody that's got alcohol and drug dependency, do you signpost them to services? Do you give them some advice on where they might go for it?
Yeah, absolutely. If there's somebody requiring any additional support, we will signpost them and put in what's called a vulnerable persons report. That goes to a public protection unit at Larbert. They review that and they would share that with the relevant partners to ensure that support was picked up. And we've got really good relationships with Transform locally as well, so we do share that information if somebody is looking for support that we come across.
That's really good to hear. And is there still a healthy interest in people joining the police?
Yes, certainly, as far as I believe so. We're getting another couple of intakes of probationers towards the end of next year, and then we're getting larger intakes, I think, at the start of next year as well. So we are seeing a number of people coming forward to join the police.
That's good to know. Any final questions for Councillor McKay?
Thanks, Provost. Just came to me as we're talking there. Obviously, the horrendous incident that we had last Thursday. Have you taken any? Is there any better precautionary measures around about mosques or synagogues, or do you feel it's not required, but you're aware of it? You know, I wouldn't imagine there'd be an increased threat, maybe nationally, but
There's a National Police Scotland response to that called Operation Hutton. We're not seeing any specific intelligence with regard to Scotland. So at this time, it's more about reassurance. But there have been additional patrols, targeted patrols, but more probably from a reassurance perspective.
Thanks, Councillor McCabe. Councillor Aitchison.
Yeah, the Scottish Child Interview Model came into place last year. Have you noticed any benefits in their interviews and whatever else going forward, and for safeguarding the children and for officers involved?
Inspector.
Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor. Yeah, I think it's a lot more trauma informed from the child's perspective. You know, they're recounting their events in a safe, secure manner, and they're only having to do that on the one occasion, whereas before they maybe had to disclose that on multiple occasions. So I think that has seen definite improvements, and it's capturing the evidence. So then obviously if it did go further down the line to court or whatever, it's minimising the impact on the child themselves. So I do think it has been a big positive with the introduction of that.
Totally agree.
Thanks, Councillor Aitchison. So, first of all, just like to thank Divisional Commander and yourself, Inspector, for coming along, giving a comprehensive report and answering these questions. So, I would just like to commend Police Scotland for their handling of ongoing protests and providing councillors with regular updates. I know the protests are resource intensive, and that's got to be prioritised, and I'm sure the people of Falkirk appreciate this. We've had a good discussion on the performance report, and it's clear the number of antisocial issues, particularly the use of off-road bikes, which are a source of distress in many communities. And it was good to hear there's a plan around this. We heard there's been a reduction of complaints of a disorder of 7.8%. We also hear that there were 1,110 licensed premises visits, which is good to hear. And Sergeant Bellingham, who sits on the licensing board, is a good interface with Police Scotland. It was also good to hear of the work going on around drug dealing. And as has been said before, the public can report any concern on the confidential Crime Stoppers line or direct to the police. Every wee bit of information helps. Other issues we've heard today: knife and offensive weapon violence have been looked at, shoplifting, fraudulent schemes, events and emergency planning, aviation offences, extortion, carers week, community engagement. Support for gala days and remembrance events, which are always welcome. So this is just some of the good work that we've heard with Police Scotland, and it was good to hear and read of your 2030 vision plan as well. So overall, a very good report, for which I'm sure the Scrutiny Committee all agree with me is commendable. So can you take back our thanks to all your officers for all the diligent work they do on our behalf, keeping us safe as we can be. Thank you very much.
Will do. Thanks very much, Provost. Thanks, everybody.
I'll go to Mr. Perry now.
So just the formal part of just the decision for the committee. I think there's a few in the report, a few options, but I think taking from the questions, that the committee is content to note the report and acknowledge progress made by the organisation. There was one small follow-up action, which was just on the Ask Angela. If you can provide that to me.
Agreed.
Thanks very much, gentlemen. Thank you.
Good. So the next item on the agenda is agenda item 8, Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, Falkirk Area Performance, pages 106 to 102, 126 in your agenda papers. I'd like to welcome Local Senior Officer Mark Duffy and Prevention Lead Stephen Harkin. So if we go to Mark Duffy to introduce the report.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thanks, everyone. If you permit, Chair, if it's okay with yourself and the committee, I'd just like to provide a very brief overview of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service, a couple of points, if that's possible.
That's great.
Thank you. I'd like to just provide the committee with an update on the service delivery review that's ongoing within the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service just now. The purpose of that service delivery review is to align the resources being personnel, fire stations and appliances with the risk and demand across Scotland. We've got 10 years worth of data and that's informing us that some of our resources are not aligned to our risk and demand currently. There are 23 options for change being put forward at this moment, and the public consultation for that has now closed. And all that information from the public consultation has been collated and will be passed towards our fire board to make a decision on the 18th of December in regards to those 23 options. Currently, the Falkirk area is not impacted by service delivery review. However, this may change in the future, and if it does, Chair, then I will bring that back to the committee as soon as I possibly can. The second point I'd like to mention, if possible, also regards the local fire plan for the Falkirk area. The development and consultation of that plan will be delayed until spring next year, and this is aligned with the service delivery review. The last thing the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service wanted to do was develop local plans and then having to change it again due to the service delivery review. So I was just providing an update, Chair, on regards to those fire plans. As soon as we get them, we're looking at early spring next year and obviously bring them to yourselves for approval. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor McCabe, did you have a question?
Yeah, just leading on from what you mentioned there, Mark. I noticed basically on the first page of our agenda paper that we're advised that the most recent local fire and rescue plan was approved by Council on the 23rd of June 2021. Are we liable to see a new plan anytime soon? Where are we with that?
Yes, you will see a new plan for that, Councillor, and we are hoping that will be early next year to see that new plan with approval and then publication early spring next year.
Thank you. The follow-up question is on page 114.
Yeah, Councillor McCabe, could you just pause you there?
Yeah, absolutely, Professor.
I go to Mr. Harkins to go through the report itself.
I beg your pardon.
My apologies.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, ladies members, good afternoon. Thank you for your opportunity to provide this update on the performance of the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service within the Falkirk area for 2024-25. This report highlights both our continued progress in reducing fire-related risks and the role we play in keeping our community safe well beyond traditional firefighting. During 2024-25, Scottish Fire and Rescue Resources attended 1,864 incidents in the Falkirk area, which is a small reduction from the previous year of 1,883. Fires and false alarms have also continued to decline, which is reflecting the effectiveness of our local prevention efforts and raising community safety awareness. We have, however, seen an increase in special service incidents, such as medical emergencies, non-fire related rescues, and other humanitarian aid-related incidents, which underlines our growing role in the wider communities and emergency response. Accidental dwelling fires remain a key focus for SFRS. 2024, we recorded 92 incidents. That's down from 103 last year and continues to a steady improvement over recent years. The main causes of domestic fires remain cooking and smoking, which we're tackling through our ongoing prevention work. Encouragingly, most of these fires are contained and limiting damage and escalation, which is a positive outcome supported by the work of heat and smoke detection within domestic properties. In terms of fire casualties, we're encouraged to report a 52% reduction in non-fatal fire casualties from 29 in 2023-24. Sorry, to 15 in 2024-25. No fatalities again. Fire fatalities have been recorded again this year. This is a strong indicator that prevention and early intervention approaches are working. We're continuing to focus on the most at risk, which are older residents, people living alone, and those with mobility challenges, supported by a targeted home fire safety model and local education activity. Across both these areas, our next steps are clear. We'll continue to deliver home fire safety visits, strengthen our referral pathways through NHS, social housing and social care partners, and run seasonal activity campaigns focused on cooking and smoking. We're also keep building on our education work to reach high-risk groups and further reduce the likelihood of injury. Throughout 2024-25, our crews also attended incidents involving 73 non-fire casualties. Unfortunately, this also resulted in 15 fatalities. This is a slight reduction from the previous year. These incidents include medical emergencies, rescues, and other forms of humanitarian assistance. We do continue to build on our capability and strengthen our partnerships to manage these situations effectively, and we're sharing learning across our community planning partnerships to help reduce preventable harm across Falkirk. In relation to deliberate and non-domestic fires, we've seen another significant reduction in deliberate fires, now sitting at 302 incidents for 2024-25, compared to 335 in 23-24, and also over 500 just 3 years ago. This is a clear sign that our youth engagement, our school-based education and close partnership with Police Scotland and the local council are delivering real impact. However, we have seen an increase in non-domestic fires, rising to 56 incidents, with a number linked to deliberate fire setting and antisocial behaviour. These incidents include a spike in incidents at Ayr Castle over the last year. We are tackling this through risk-based fire safety audits, joint working with Police Scotland and other departments within Falkirk Council, and collaboration with local businesses and licensing teams to reduce and improve our resilience. I'm also pleased to report continuous progress is reducing unwanted fire alarm signals, which is false alarms. We recorded 250 incidents in 2024-25, which is down from 283 the previous year, and a major improvement of over 580 2 years ago. This significant reduction reflects the success of our revised UFAS policy, introduced in 2023, which encourages responsible alarm management by duty holders, particularly within care homes and healthcare facilities. Relating to road traffic collisions, road safety remains a consistent area of activity for our personnel and community safety engagement team. We've attended 79 road traffic collisions in 2024-25, which is broadly in line with previous years. Sadly, these incidents have resulted in 5 fatalities and 35 casualties. Personnel continue to work closely with Police Scotland and local authorities and national road safety organisations to target high-risk routes such as M9 and the A801, focusing on key risk factors such as speed, impairment and distraction, and this is done through our ongoing joint safety campaigns. So beyond emergency response, community safety and engagement work continues to play a vital role in our prevention and resilience. Some of the highlights we've had over the last 12 months include multi-agency risk and preparedness exercises at coma sites in Grangemouth and across the Falkirk area. Successfully delivered over 1,000 home fire safety visits, which is an increase from the previous year. Worked in partnership with our youth diversionary initiatives tackling deliberate fire setting. We continue our road safety education for young drivers and child car seat safety programme. And we continue with ongoing engagement with HMP Polmont, and also work with Camp Camelin and Bainsford community groups and care experienced young people across the area. In summary, Falkirk area continues to show strong progress across key areas with reductions in accidental dwelling fires, fire casualties and false alarms, all underpinned by our excellent partnership working. Challenges remain, particularly in non-domestic and deliberate fires, and an increase in demand for non-emergency response. But our prevention approach and focus to community safety and resilience are delivering lasting results. We will continue to build on progress throughout 2025-26 and ensure that our service delivery remains responsive, effective and deeply connected to the communities we serve. Thank you, Chair, and I'm happy to accept any questions.
Thanks very much, Mr Harkins. We'll now go back to Councillor McCabe.
Thank you, Convener. Yeah, it's just a very local one for me. As a local ward member, I was just looking at page 119, and it's deliberate fires incidents by ward. Unfortunately, my ward, Denny and Banknock, is right up there. Any indication why? Just into my not keeping an eye on the younger people in my community, or is there anything else underlying that?
Most deliberate fires are attributed, unfortunately, to youths and young offenders. I know that within Falkirk and within the wider West Lothian area we cover, there has been incidents where fly tipping, etc., has occurred, so that can be contributed to one of the factors for deliberate fire setting, but it is mainly youths that are contributing to that factor.
I think that does me, Provost. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor McCabe. Section 2, page 114. Well, accidental dwelling fires and deliberate fires have shown an overall reduction in the past few years. Incidences of non-domestic fires has been at its highest level, 24, 25, 56, in comparison to 22, 23, and was 42, and 41 in 23, 24. Is there any explanation why that would be, why non-domestic fires have increased?
Sure. Again, that's probably more the same issue. We have seen a spike in antisocial behaviour, especially targeted around youths. Again, the Earth Castle over the last year have seen an increased number of incidents there, which have contributed to the non-domestic fires. Again, we've been working with Police Scotland and Falkirk Council to mitigate the risk there and reduce access to the property to try and reduce these incidents.
Thank you. And these the statutory requirement for the linked up alarms, do you think that's made a difference overall?
Definitely, yes. It has been made a big impact. As you can see from the incidents in domestic fires, we are seeing that trend of a decrease. And it's not just about reducing the number of fires, also the significance of them when they happen. They are being confined to the rooms just where the fire started rather than escalating throughout the rest of the house.
Oh, that's good. That's really good to hear. And we'll now go to Councillor Patrick.
Thank you. Yes, you did make a very brief mention about sort of unwanted fire alarm signals, and particularly about there being medical, in medical establishments. This is in page 121. They've decreased because I mean they were almost not quite double in 2022-23. But you have pointed out that the residential care homes and the healthcare facilities are still a big source of false alarms. And you, I think, indicated that you're trying to work with these establishments. Could you maybe expand on that and sort of what actions are taking place? Because that seems a really big part of the false alarms and the work that you're carrying out, which you could be doing other work if you weren't being called out so often on false alarms. So could you elaborate on that a bit, please?
Okay, Mr Harkins.
Yeah, that's correct, Councillor. Our community safety enforcement team are attending properties as well as our local stations attend sites such as care homes where we provide we do an operation and intelligence visit to gather that information. We're also providing feedback to the people that work in these properties, offering them advice and developing fire action plans that mitigate the need for our attendants. If they can make the check for the false alarm in the first instance, it allows them to then call back to the call centres, reducing the number of our turnouts. So it is mainly about education of personnel and staff.
And is that something you actually go out? You're not just reacting and giving them that advice when there's been a false alarm, but you're actually sort of trying to go around and prevent those to start with.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah, and also our enforcement team carry out audits on premises as well, and from that we can further educate not just the personnel working, but also the companies that own these properties.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Patrick. I just wondered, is there a cost associated with these false alarms? Like I used to work in the NHS, and there's a lot of times fire brigades have to come out. But did you ever bill the NHS or anything like that, or is it? How is that done?
We don't bill, Chair. No, it's not something that we routinely do. We'd rather work with individuals and premises to try and make it right. When we mentioned care homes there, our care homes are inspected yearly, and as part of that yearly inspection we talk about unwanted signals and the importance of your fire alarm, but also your fire alarm being maintained and serviced regularly, because there are incidents that we are attending an unwanted signal and it's the fault of the alarm rather than the fault of the individuals within. So we try and work with everyone, but the last thing we want to do is provide a bill to these services. We'd rather just work with them.
Just a thought. So there was 1,016 home fire safety visits. How do you decide who's getting a visit? Do people request these visits themselves, or how does that come about?
Yeah, in February 2025, we introduced a new home fire safety visit. Previously, anybody who wanted a home fire safety visit was allowed one. We were, as a national service, we were carrying out over 70,000 home fire safety visits a year. Maybe our resources weren't always required at that point, so our prevention directorate has provided a new home fire safety visit where we target those most vulnerable in their homes and are at high risk from fire. That will reduce the number of visits we do, but we still do offer information to homes via our online platforms where people can carry out questionnaires and get bespoke fire action plans and bespoke information to their needs and concerns. If that person then is required to have a home fire safety visit, our crews would organise that visit. So we are maintaining them steadily and
that targeted approach, Chair, and to the committee is something that we've tried to strive for a number of years. It's not to say that the home fire safety visits we've done previously, there's been no merit in it, because there absolutely have. However, we do have a lot of data as to those individuals that are dying in house fires or being injured in house fires, and unfortunately it is very elderly in our community just now. It is smokers, it is individuals that have alcohol and drug dependency, and they are absolutely our focus. That's where our fires are occurring. We need to make sure we target those people.
Councillor Richardson.
Thanks, Provost. Just looking forward and educating our younger people, you're quite conveniently sitting beside the Director of Education. What initiatives, Jenny, do you have through schools educating our younger people regarding fire, well-being of the community?
Good question.
Thanks, Councillor. Well, at the moment, we're hitting our busiest period of the year. We're carrying out a bonfire plan, so we attend all primary, secondary schools to offer advice about the use of fireworks and acting in a responsible and safe manner during the bonfire period. Throughout Falkirk, we have a number of different initiatives ongoing with local charities, especially the Falkirk Foundation, where we're bringing care experienced kids into work at the station in a kind of fire skills approach. We've also got a youth volunteer scheme within the Falkirk area, which has been successful, began in the beginning of the year. We've recently done a partnership with our local council in West Lothian. We've carried out an S6 experience, which allowed us to work in collaboration with Police Scotland and offer advice for people or students leaving school and try and prepare them for adult life. So that surrounded different fire safety input, road safety input. We are looking to promote this through Falkirk, potentially next year or year after, and we'll be in contact with education regarding that.
Brilliant.
Thanks very much, Councillor Richardson. I just wanted to ask a question on the coma sites. I think Ingles has maybe got their own fire service. So how do you interface with the coma sites to sort of draw up their resilience plans, and in case anything goes wrong, how do you partner with them?
We meet regularly with our different partners that are working in the coma sites, especially other partner agencies. We run exercises throughout the year on a quarterly basis. Each specific coma site has their own training plan that we work through and are supportive There was sessions last week, and I know not just around Grangemouth, but within the wider Falkirk area. Obviously, been Diageo has been a recent exercise we've been running, so it is pretty positive.
Coma sites are a priority for us as a service. Obviously, with the way INEOS is now and the reduction in INEOS is a concern for the fire service. So we still regularly meet with our INEOS colleagues. We still regularly meet with the fire service or the fire station and its personnel within INEOS. And we know there's been a number of redundancies in the Scottish Fire and Rescue Service that it's actually stepped in and assisted some of those that have been made redundant. So INEOS still remains a concern, and yes, it is. We obviously know that it's closing. However, as far as fire goes, there's still a risk. So with the closure over the next amount of months and potentially years, that doesn't mean that we're stepping away from our responsibilities regarding Coma and particularly INEOS. It's probably, if I'm being honest, it's a time where we want to maybe be down there a bit more often rather than not.
Thanks. Mr. Kelly.
Aye, can I just ask, we were talking about incidents of deliberate non-domestic fires rising. Was this mainly through empty properties, commercial properties that have been sitting? Is that the reasons for that?
Thanks, Councillor. I think there's a variety of reasons why these incidents have been increased. Some of them are due to empty commercial premises. I know in the wider Forth Valley and area there's been a spike in commercial properties basically due to cannabis cultivations. That's one of the things we're supporting the wider Forth Valley to tackle. But it is mainly attributed to youth's deliberate fire setting.
Okay, thank you.
Just a final question, Marcel, about recruitment. We're still getting quite a number of people coming forward to the fire service?
We are, Councillor, yes. So we're recruiting just now for full time. That recruitment campaign opened about 4 or 5 weeks ago, and it closed relatively quickly due to the number of people that were applying for the service. So we are at the stage now, we're working through recruitment and we're looking at bringing in potentially 150 firefighters next year, which will be obviously really good for us for that. But no, full-time recruitment's ongoing. We're going to recruit again next year, and we're always recruiting for on-call, which is our part-time retained stations, for example, Denny and Larbour, Bowness, etc. So we focus on the on-call as much as we do the whole time. So yes, full campaign running just now, and happy to report back to the committee on the success of that.
Thank you. So in summary, basically, I'd like to thank you both for the report. It was an excellent report and well presented report. The way it was laid out was really, the data was right in front of you, it was dead easy to read. And so we've heard that there were 1,864 incidents to respond to. These included fires, non-fires and false alarms. 79 people rescued and 29 people receiving first aid at hospital. It was also good to hear of the 1,016 home fire safety visits. And it was concerning to hear of the 302 deliberate fire settings, and I'm sure this is something that will be communicated widely to try and reduce this figure. All in all, a good, well-presented, well-written, encouraging report outlining actions taken and the key indicators against the local plan, which will be coming forward 2026. So I'm sure the Scrutiny Committee will agree with that. And on behalf of the Scrutiny Committee, can you pass on our thanks to all the officers who keep us safe? Thank you. Thanks for your attendance today. And we'll go to Mr. Curry for the decision.
Thanks. Just to confirm again, the options were the same as for the previous reports, that it's happy to know the report and acknowledge the progress.
Great. Okay. Thanks very much for coming along. So the next item on the agenda is the final item, agenda item 9, occupational violence analysis of workplace survey and the next steps. And Mr. Moody.
Thank you very much, Provost. And I'm conscious of the amount of time that members have spent already, so I'll attempt to be brief in this introduction to leave as much time for questions. as possible. It's maybe helpful though just to recall just a little bit of background to why we are where we're here today. And at the executive last year, there was a motion considered which raised the issue of a large increase in the number of reported instances of occupational violence and asked for a report back on some of the explanation for that and actions to be taken. I think it's helpful maybe just to recall that the principal reason for the increase was to do with the introduction of an electronic reporting system. So it was an increase in reporting probably rather than an increase in actual incidents. And there was also another important issue around that, around the category of reporting. And I think it was recognised widely that there was an over-reporting of incidents classified as occupational violence, when in truth those related more to dysregulated behaviour by pupils within the classroom, particularly in the primary and ESN sectors. So with the agreement of the trade unions, there was a new category introduced of dysregulated behaviour, and that has led to a reduction in the number of reports of occupational violence. There was also at that stage, I think, a recognition of the need for training to be made available for those areas of staff facing occupational violence or dysregulated behaviour. And that is one of the actions within the action plan that was agreed at the executive at the time. Another item within the action plan was that we should carry out a survey of employees, and that has been done, and the result of the survey is appended to the report today. I think the survey overall reveals that this isn't a problem solved. This is an ongoing issue which we will need to keep working on and keep working away at. I think one of the more striking results of the survey was around the issue of when people thought they'd had a debrief or not after reporting an incident. And that's another action that will follow, is to prepare guidance on how to undertake a debrief effectively with staff who are reporting an incident. And it will also be something I think that managers will be reminding their teams of in relation to the importance of that. I think it speaks as well to some of the results which suggested that people didn't report incidents because they didn't think it would make a difference. And I think creating that culture of a regular debrief if a report is made helps to create that virtuous cycle of people seeing that there is a value of undertaking the report. I think, though, there are also positives to report as well, in that the training has become, I think, more widespread and also targeted in areas of the highest risk. And I think the colleagues that we have here from education may be able to say some more around that and on some positive outcomes in relation to that training in response to questions. So I think, Provost, that's all I want to say in introduction. But so we do have colleagues here from education who are able to answer questions in relation to school-related issues, and also have Tracy here as well, who can answer more of the details in relation to the broader issues identified within the report. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moody. The surveys provide a useful picture of occupational violence and dysregulated behaviour, but does it reflect the reality of the situation on the ground? Surveys are one thing, but what's actuality? Mr. Moody.
I think it's a helpful observation, I think, Bovis, because I think one thing that might be useful in any future iteration of this report, if there's a further report required back to update the committee on progress, is, I think, matching survey results with the actual results from the She Assure system. And I think the figures we have for 24-25 don't indicate a substantial fall overall in reports. What they do show is a major change in the categorisation of the reports and a very significant fall in occupational violence, and instead reports being of dysregulated behaviour. Now, we're obviously just part of the way into the year for 25-26, so we don't have the full figures there yet, but I think there are some signs of an encouraging decrease in some areas. And again, it may be something that colleagues from education are able to say more about on that issue.
Thank you, Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Provost. I mean, any report regarding occupational violence or distress and dysregulated behaviour is obviously of concern to us. But what I would say is if it wasn't being reported to us, then we wouldn't be taking the action that we are currently taking. And therefore, through our incident management group and our behaviour relationships and behaviour strategy group, there's a really clear plan in place for education services to provide further training and to provide support for staff who are experiencing this. What I would say is that as part of that plan, we're introducing a number of different supports and training across different establishments. But if I focus in on one of our establishments, which had a very high number of incidents due to the number of young people displaying distress and dysregulated behaviour and what they were experiencing, we have new leadership and management in that place, and we introduced advanced practice seminars into that establishment, and there was a 77% reduction in June 2025 compared with March 2025 following the introduction of that support and the new leadership. So I think there are instances of that right across the service where that leadership, that guidance, that support is having a similar effect.
Thanks very much, Mr. Reid. Just another question. Page 130 says it's been ascertained. Have we figured out why 587 employees surveyed felt that reporting incidents didn't change anything? Why was that felt? Have we asked that question? Tracy?
Thanks, Provost. There could be a number of kind of reasons that are attached to that. Probably the main reason would be the debrief. Individuals maybe aren't receiving feedback on the outcomes or the updated risk assessment. So I think the action that we have in the plan to implement some further guidance may support that.
Okay, thank you very much. Now go to Councillor Aitchison.
Thanks, Provost. And probably to a certain extent, the question's already been answered. And Colin covered a lot within his overview of the whole thing. But basically, how does the analysis of the survey results and individually reported instances compare to each other? And how does the analysis influence further training and guidance?
Mr. Moody?
I think it's maybe back again to just re-emphasising the points already made. I think feedback loop is an issue. Tracy said developing guidance on that issue and reaffirming that. I think Mr. Reid's also made, I think very helpfully, the point that within education services there is a real focus on the issue. I think it's really helpful to hear but where that's also risk-based as well, and where there was a service with a very high instance of dysregulated or distressed behaviour, that's where some targeted advanced training has been rolled out and it's been effective. So it's not something we're going to solve completely. There will, I think, always be instances of particularly children within schools who display some of this behaviour. think our responsibility as an employer is to ensure that our staff are best equipped to address that behaviour as best they can. And that's also, I think, around equipping them with the means to try and avoid those behaviours arising as well. And that partly underlies the focus on the de-escalation training, which is referred to within the report as well. So there are a number of strands, I think, of activity which arise both from the survey and from the figures themselves.
That would be cascaded down to all members of staff for their knowledge.
I think it's fair to say it's probably targeted more on the areas of highest risk. So, for instance, for our office-based back office staff, it wouldn't be particularly relevant or helpful to have that kind of training. But for those working within the primary and ES sector of schools, then obviously it's much more relevant and significant. And I think it may be helpful to hear from John on that point.
Sorry, absolutely. Thank you. Thanks, Provost. Thanks, Councillor Aitchison. I think to put this into context, just so that everyone's clear on the processes we're adopting, in 2024 and 2025, within education services, there were 1,371 incidents of occupational violence or distressed and dysregulated behaviour reported via the system. Now, that sounds horrific, but when you break that down and you bear in mind that across our early learning and childcare centres, our primary, secondary and ESN establishments, there are 25,000 young people, and you break that data down into how many incidents per week, it's roughly 35 incidents on average per week. It will be slightly less since some of our centres are open more than just school terms. So the proportion of incidents related to the number of pupils is very low, but our focus on the incident management group and through the relationships and behaviour group is to make sure that we've got an accurate picture. So we encourage staff to record that they have an accurate picture so that we can then target centres or schools with extra support. That's really important, and it will be down to who is frontline in that centre. So in some instances, there's a greater proportion of support for learning assistants that will receive the training and teaching staff. So it's down to individual cases. But what we also look at as well is how these instances are being generated. So is it individual members of staff? Is it an individual pupil? What is it that's causing those entries, and we can then tailor the support that's required. But I come back to the approach that we've adopted in one of our centres with a high number of entries, where we've seen quite a dramatic reduction in the last few months of the session 24-25. So it's very targeted. But what we are doing is rolling out the offer of training to all centres and to all establishments and all staff. And it doesn't matter what your role is, that training will be there and will be available for you. We want to support as much as possible.
Thank you both. That's very helpful. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Aitchison. So, I've kind of touched on this already, but respondents to the survey who experienced instances of occupational violence or dysregulated behaviour most commonly didn't report these incidents because they believe it wouldn't change anything. However, with incidents of dysregulated behaviour, dealing with these incidents was seen as part of my job, which can lead to underreporting. I wonder if you maybe touch on why people felt it was just part of their job, and they should accept that rather than reporting it.
I mean,
that's something in the plan that we're working on.
Yes, thank you, Provost. I think Tracy gave a a response to that, another interpretation of that, in that they didn't report it because they felt it wouldn't change anything, is they're dealing with individual children that come in and can be overwhelmed and can become dysregulated. And so perhaps an interpretation of that is, well, I didn't report it because I know what that child is experiencing and where they come from in the background, and I'm there, I'm committed to them, I'm going to deal with it as best I can. However, it is absolutely not an acceptance that it's okay to come to your work and have to deal with that. What we need to do, we are always going to have young people like that coming in like that into settings, and it's particularly within our ASN settings, our early years and lower stages of primary. So we're always going to have young people like that. What we need to do is provide staff with the support and the techniques in order to de-escalate it, so that they're not put in that position where they have to report something. But we continue to work with our heads of establishment and head teachers to make sure that we develop the guidance and we develop the training. And you'll see in the appendices there quite extensive guidance that has been issued about reporting for staff, and also good examples of how to carry out an effective debrief.
Okay, thanks very much, Mr. Reid. Any other questions? Councillor McCabe.
It's not a question per se, Provost, it's more observational. When you look at the report at face value, it's quite alarming. Violence, occupational violence, oh dear, dear. Look at the numbers, oh dear, dear. But as Mr. Reid's already alluded to, with 25,000 kids and 1,300 incidents, in proportion, it's not horrendous. However, just do away with the 25,000 kids and just look at the 1,300. That is horrendous, those 1,300. But again, when you look into the background to that, this isn't about staff members being attacked, physically attacked by a raging kid or whatever. This is dysregulated behaviour, and on the part of the staff, they recognise, that the kids can be that bit anxious or whatever. So it is an issue. I'm pleased to hear what Mr. Reid has said about we're already targeting that to offer the assistance to staff members to try and draw back, calm things down and whatever. So I fully realise that we're doing that. The only bit of concern I had, it was on page 139, results from employee survey on occupational violence. It's the first two wee indicators there. We got a daily, weekly, and less frequently than weekly. And the one below it, did you report any of these incidents in the last 6 months? And both of those indicators suggest an acceptance of the lot. That's what it is. The only one that has a wee tinkling alarm bell for me is the second one. Did you report any of these incidents in the last 6 months? It was 50-50. Some people reported it, and 50% of people didn't report it. So the question for me is there an underreporting of the 1,300 figure? Is it actually higher or whatever? I don't necessarily believe that it is, but it's just a wee concern. But no, I'm more than happy with the report and the fact that we're aware of the problems, we're aware of the issues, and we're putting the necessary measures in place to try and answer, tackle, and reduce the figures that we're getting. I don't have any major concerns, as I say, other than perhaps underreporting, whatever. But don't know. Thank you, Camilla.
Thank you. Mr. Reid.
Thank you, Provost. I think, just to be really clear about the survey, 300 teaching staff completed the survey and 81 support for learning assistants completed the survey. So to bear that in mind in terms of the number of staff that we have across the service, albeit they would, if more completed it, they may report similar or identical issues. I think the thing about this is when something happens in a school, the first priority of the staff there is to keep the children safe. So they will deal with the situation, they will report the situation, action will be taken, and then there will be a discussion about the way forward involving the member of staff or parents or our colleagues from Police Scotland or whatever it is. You need to go onto a different system to record incidents, to have them showing up in data like this, because there will be all sorts of internal systems in individual establishments and schools that they just deal with that and record it. This is a separate system. And what our job as a service is to make sure that whatever you're using in school aligns with this, so that we have a true picture, so that we can target our resources.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Reid. So I think it was important that this came forward. Councillor Bundy that introduced this, and that we've discussed it today, and there's a plan in place going forward. So would the committee like a report of coming forward for 25-26, perhaps after the summer recess when there's been a full year?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll now go to Mr. Barry.
Well, thanks. Just to repeat then, just what you've requested and the committee agreed, just that you note the report and ask for a follow-up progress report on 25-26, which you would expect after the recess next summer.
Agreed. Okay, thanks very much. That's the final item on the scrutiny agenda. So I'd like to thank everybody for their excellent contributions and for attendance today. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.